A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
It's lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. We come up the inside. McLaughlin gets it to They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Well, hello and welcome everybody to a new season. This is the replacement for the AMS Oz GT3 series, and it is known as the World Endurance Championship, or WEC for short. Welcome one and all. We're on the east coast of the United States of America today. We're at the famed Daytona International Speedway for the 2 hours of Daytona. Nether here in the commentary box. Alongside me is Bagsy. Bagsy, good evening to you.
Evening, Nether. How you going?
Good, thank you. And our pit lane reporter is Stairs. Stairs, good evening to you.
Good evening, Nether. Good to be here.
Well, it's exclusively an ARW commentary team field today because Matt Williams, who was a regular in the GT3 series, has opted to go back into racing. So he's in the LMP2 class, which we'll get on to class a bit more shortly. But nonetheless, the ARW commentary team brings you the broadcast in conjunction and on behalf of Short Shift Podcast. Well, first and foremost, a new season means a new calendar. And here's the calendar on your screen here. And Bagsy and Stairs, having a look through that calendar list, there are some classic circuits there we're going to visit in the next 8 rounds.
Yeah, it's especially some of the places like Spa, Silverstone, and Fuji, all ones that see World Endurance Championship go to, but also a couple of interesting ones like Monza and Melbourne, which the World Endurance Championship doesn't usually go to.
No, certainly not. It's the one to Melbourne is the final round there of 8, as you can see on the calendar, and actually culminating on Remembrance Day. And fitting that the majority of the field are Australians, and it's an Australian race on a very important Australian day in the calendar. Well, the one at the top of the list there is the 2 hours of Daytona. That is what we are doing today. And if we bring up the circuit map, it's a circuit synonymous with the 24 hours of Daytona, which is the very, very first race in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship in the United States. 120 minutes race length. There are 320-minute races this season. 12 turns. It's a 5 3/4 length circuit track. We're looking around about the 70 lap mark for the LMP2 class, somewhere in the realms of about 64-65 laps for the GT cars. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless, Stairs, because the LMP2 cars are quite substantially quicker than the GT cars, so there's going to be plenty of overtaking and hopefully not too many accidents.
Yeah, absolutely. The LMP2 class, of which unfortunately we only have 2 at the moment, so we're hoping that grid starts to fill out a little bit, but those around here, they're about 7 seconds faster than the GT3 cars, so they'll have to watch where they're lapping people. And interestingly, they don't seem to have the grip in the tricky tight infield section, which isn't so reliant on downforce as the GT3 cars. GT3 cars seem to have a little bit more grip in those areas, so where they get past will be crucial. Certainly will.
And in terms of where they get past, probably the prime overtaking manoeuvres are into turn 1, and the chicane around the back straight is where they're the high-speed points. That's where we expect that the LMP2 cars should be able to get past, but getting caught up in that infield is a bit tricky, isn't it? Because there's really not too many suitable overtaking areas, or they're very, very short overtaking areas. If you don't capitalise on them, then you're going to get stuck there in that infield for a little bit. It could compromise you a bit later on.
Absolutely. Bagsy?
Bagsy's off having a beer by the sounds of things.
Yes. Good point anyway, to just quickly talk about the fuel burn of some of these cars, which is going to be a significant factor in endurance racing. It's all about the strategy. Now, the LMP2 cars, they're all 80-litre tanks, and the information we've got from Far Canal Racing is that they can do about 3.8 litres per lap, which I think is around about 20 laps before they have to pit, which would make it a three-stop strategy. As for the GT3 cars, which all have, as far as I know, 120-litre tanks, so much, much larger tanks, they will obviously be able to go longer in terms of laps, but then, of course, they're travelling slower, so when and where they pit will be crucial. In terms of the fuel economy, we've got some information from Lewis Wedding. He's gone through and tested a lot of these cars, and he reckons that probably the most economical cars would be the Porsche and the Lotus, so watch out for Brock Harvey. The most thirsty cars would be some of the big American cars, the Corvette, Cadillacs, and also the M6, which I believe there's 4 M6s registered in this, and just looking at, I think 3 of them are in the server tonight. So those cars will be probably coming into the pits that little bit more often than the others.
Yeah, certainly. Probably a worthwhile opportunity while qualifying is just getting ready to get underway. We have a look here at the key points for this new championship season. There's 2 different point schemes on offer. So the LMP2 cars are awarded 10 points for a win and then points all the way down to 8th, and that's because there are only 8 cars scheduled to be in the LMP2 class, although we only have 2 in the field at the moment. Guys, get a wriggle on, get in here. The GT3 category will award 25 points for a win and points all the way down to 15th place, and we actually have Pro A and Pro B rankings there. Each category is treated separately, so even if the GT3 car finishes in between some LMP2s or vice versa, it doesn't affect the position of the LMP2. They effectively get their own points. You must be a classified finisher. You must complete 70% of the race winner's laps to be classified as being completed at the checkered flag, and you must complete the final lap within a 130% of the time set by the competitor on the final racing lap who wins. We had some issues, as you may recall, back at Laguna Seca, where one individual, mentioning no names, was classified even though they did not cross the line in a lap time of something like 16 minutes. So that rule has been taken away.
It was Brock Harvey, who I believe is possibly listening in on us.
I think we were definitely trying to avoid. I think we all knew who we were talking about.
We were trying to avoid that. Well, qualifying's underway.
Good to see your microphone's back working, Bagsy.
Yes, qualifying's underway. Well, before we go too far, let's have a bit of a look at the grid as they line up. So, in the LMP2 class, you've got Nangle, Snow, Williams, and Jorrit van Dassela, who is the author of this mod that we're using. Thank you, Jorrit. Remaining of the LMP2, we have Ott, Simpson, Costa, and Kirkham. Now, you'll notice some of them are covered cars and some of them are open cockpits. Pay attention to that. GT3 Pro A category, Lewis Wedding, Matt Webb, Phil Boak, and Brenton Foley. Lewis Wedding changes to Bentley from Lamborghini, the winner of the GT3. Still in Pro A, we've got Rob Dunt, we've got Greg Tara, Brock Harvey, and Jaden Draper. So good to see a good mix of different cars coming into play here. And the last of the Pro A guys, Lewis Kugali, Scott Murrell, and Anthony Graham rounds out the Pro A's. In the Pro B, in the GT3 class, we've got Glenn Miles, Luke Joyner, David Keane, and Andrew Hall, pair of Lamborghinis there. And we'll talk more about those Lamborghinis a bit later on. Brendan Simons, Cale Parkinson, Connor Dean, and Matt Schwass. Also in Pro B, some newcomers and some guys coming in from other series and rotating from GT3. And the balance of the Pro B field is Dwayne Davies, Brian Walsh, and Brendan Ross. A couple of privateers coming into the mix. Well, I think, gentlemen, it's time that we got over and had a look at what's going on in qualifying, don't you?
Sounds like a good idea. And as always, if you go to amsoz.liveraces.com, you can see the live timing we are, so you can see who's on fast laps and who's pushing for the lead.
Well, what's interesting now is this happens from time to time, and I'm sure people will attest to this. Automobilista has a funny thing that it does. It's called crashing. So my screen has actually gone blank here, and I'm about to sort myself out and get back in. So I apologise to the viewers. It was...
In the meantime, this becomes a bit of a radio show, so I'm sure Bagsy and myself can fill you in on what's going on the track at the moment.
Well, what we'll do in the meantime is I'll put up the list again of the LMP2 cars, so you can see just who is actually meant to be here, and the list is there. So you've got in numerical order. The only 2 cars that actually have appeared so far for LMP2 are Matt Williams and Jamie Snow. So a bit disappointing that there's not really that much of a turnout for LMP2 this time around. We should have 8 cars, but unfortunately we've only got the 2. And the majority of the field that's turned up so far actually seems to belong to the GT3A and the GT3B boys. So if we go back, we'll bring up the GT3A field there, so you can see what a good mix of cars we've got too. We've got the Bentleys, we've got Dodges, we've got BMWs, we've got Porsches, we've got Corvettes, we've got Ferraris, we've got quite a good mix of GT cars coming through the mix. And if we have a look at the GT3B guys as well, you'll see that's where those couple of Lamborghinis have come in the one McLaren as well. Dwayne Davies has also appeared. So even though it's the same GT cars across the Pro A and the Pro B classes, they are easily identifiable actually, because they've each got a little green or a little blue light flashing in the corner of the screen of the front windshield, so you'll be able to tell who the Pro A guys are, who the Pro B guys are, and of course the LMP cars. There is no Pro A or Pro B. You're deemed to be in that car because you are fast, therefore you don't compete in a class on your own. You compete as one.
And while that's going on, just on track there, Jamie Snow is the only LMP2 car to settle that. Having said that, Matt Williams has just gone across the line, so Jamie Snow provisionally on pole position from Matt Williams in second place.
Yeah, it was a pretty good lap from Jamie Snow. He's gone very fast straight away. He's got almost a second on Matt Williams. It's going to be a bit of a lonely battle for them up the front, given that we do only have the 2 LMP2 cars. Hopefully we'll be able to bring you a bit more of a larger field in the coming races. But yeah, GT3 is where we're going to see the biggest battles for position. Currently, Greg Tara is the one who is having a slide coming out of the infield section. He's set the fastest time, though, of a 1:44.4, the fastest GT3 time that is. It is BMW M6, and he's going quite early. He's got a fairly sizable gap of... Sorry, he doesn't have a sizable gap. I was looking at the wrong column there. He has a 300th gap over Matt Webb in the Bentley Continental, so it's quite close to the top there.
Rob Dunt's another one. He's done a pretty good first sector, but he's lost out in the second or third sectors. Just want to make mention of that car, because when the race gets going, I want everyone to have a look at that, because it's got some interesting headlights that make it look like something from How to Train Your Viper. Rob Dunt in the Dodge Viper SRT, and looks a little bit like Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon with that livery.
It reminds me of a bit of a... It does... Wow, I've just seen a front-on view of it, and it really does. We'll have to get Beather to give us a zoom in on that when he's back in and broadcasting. It reminds me of an old ARW livery that you had on a V8 supercar stairs with your Geelong-inspired livery, and made the front of your car look quite like a cat.
I do like the idea of headlights being eyes, and if they can be something fearsome like a face, then that might just distract cars as you're coming up behind them.
Or even the old classic Falcon green headlights back from the early 2000s V8 supercar days. That's one of the iconic sort of headlighted cars. Everyone remembers those green headlights.
Absolutely. In the meantime, Matt Williams has closed the gap to Jamie Snow to a 1/10.5, so that's looking promising for the only 2 LMP2 cars on the grid, albeit from the same team, so I don't know how closely. Hopefully they are allowed to race, and there's no team orders within the FAR Canal Racing team. So the LMP2 campaign for the FAR Canal Racing team getting off to a pretty good start, as I believe we've got pictures back.
Yes, we certainly do. We finally got the feed up and running. It's I do apologise again. Normally AMS doesn't do too badly for me, but on one time you want it to behave itself, that'll be the time where it ultimately fails you. So just an interesting point I want to come back to. We're watching a Jamie Snow at the moment, so as he tours down the pit lane in the FAR Canal LMP2 car, and we're being very careful to pronounce this because we love upsetting Scruff. Matt Williams and Jamie Snow, they're in cars that are with the same team, but they don't look the same, do they? We've got this one here is the open cockpit, I think it's the HPD, and then Matt Williams is, if we skip to him, you can see he's in the fully enclosed car, which is, I believe from memory, it's not the Orica, is it? It's the Lola. So there's a couple of different ones, because you've got the Lola's the fully covered one, and you've got the HPD and the Orica, which are the open cockpit ones. And even though they are from the same team, there are a few cars that most of them are coloured the same way. So Jamie Snow's the only odd one out, but he is reportedly a member of that stable. And
we've had a third LMP2 car join, who is not a driver who have had sign up for this series, so he's a guest, and that is Oz Rob, who has jumped into Johnny Kirkham's car there, the 666 Racing. I believe that's a Lola.
Yep. And
just a carbon-coloured car.
Yeah, and I believe that Matt Williams may have seen that, and that's why we just lost our feed with Matt Williams temporarily, because he may be going to hastily organise that person to disappear, because this is a closed series, so once you are in, you have been allocated a car, and unless there is an agreement between drivers, then you shouldn't actually be racing someone else's car.
Just we're hearing that he may have heard the call on the stream, and might be here to fill in for an LMP2 car for this round, as we do have a bit of a lack of them. So we'll see.
We certainly hope that. Yeah, we don't want. Even if he is a guest, we still want him to race, because the 3-car field's better than a 2-car field.
That's right. Well, we want to give a shout out here to Brock Harvey, because he's found his way in the GT3 Pro A to the head of the Pro A queue at the moment. So his best lap time is a 44.0, just a touch under a 44.1. Anthony Graham's just managed to get up to a 44.17, so in the Ferrari 488. So not that far behind Brock, but this car, we suspect, is probably one of the best in terms of the GT3 Pro A category, and probably give a number of guys a run for their money. Now, as you look at the head-on shot when it comes to, you can see that these couple of cars here have got that little blue and little green flashing lights on the passenger side. So the green light indicates that car belongs in the Pro A GT3 category, and the blue light in the Pro B GT3 category. So if you're watching around and you're wondering what those little lights are all about, now you know.
Very useful for us as commentators. And one thing also we should make mention of, the graphics earlier on in the broadcast showed that Lewis Wedding and Matt Webb had the pink and white liveries, but those have been updated, I believe, in at least for our viewing pleasure. Matt Webb now running a red livery, and Lewis Wedding a blue livery, so something a little bit nicer than what was originally set aside for them.
Yeah, again, and those two guys are from the same stable as well, the Loose Webb Motorsport team, they call them. Lewis Wedding, the reigning GT3 Pro A champion, that GT3 having finished up a couple of weeks ago. He's all the way down 13th at the moment. I would have expected him to be a little bit further up the pointy end of the field, but having changed from a Lamborghini to a Bentley Continental for this endurance series. I'm not sure if it's taking a little bit longer to come to terms with that car than he was anticipating, but interesting to see his progress. Nonetheless, let's keep an eye on Brock Harvey. Let's see what he can do as he shoots down to turn 1 here in that Lotus Exige Sport. Takes a slightly tighter line than most people. Now through the back section, past the pit exit. Hard braking on the infield section here. This looks like, I'm not sure we locked the brake there a little bit, but it certainly looked like it. Now the chute along the infield section and come down to another hard braking zone in a few seconds. Right about now. And hard on the anchors again for another right-hander. These right-handers on the infield are quite tricky. Even the GT cars in the 24 Hours of Daytona struggle to pull them up there, especially at night. Very tricky to spot. Oh, lock brake going into what they call the turn that leads onto the banking, and now hard on the power down to the chicane. It's interesting, the Americans have coined a phrase for these sorts of circuits. It's not an oval, it's not a road course, it's called a roval, and it's very unusual, sort of making up words, isn't it, Stairs?
straight out of the book of the Germans, except they would have probably not cut out the middle syllable, and it'd be called a road oval if it was a German compound word.
Yeah, so it's normally what used to be called a road course is now a roval, and a few of them seem to pop up in the US. There's actually one they're going to in the NASCAR in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months for the NASCAR Championship Series at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, they're calling it.
Jamie Snow's just obliterated Matt Williams.
Oh, he has. Look at that. We looked at the very top. So we were watching Brock Harvey, but if we scoot to Jamie Snow, he's done a 136.3, so he's really, really on it, and has now come into the pits. There's only 45 seconds left. Let's see who's out on track that can try and improve their time. As we look at one of the Cadillacs coming out of the pits there as Brock Harvey goes past. Rob Dunt sitting up in the pits at the minute. Here's Anthony Graham in the Ferrari 488 Pro A class. Very smart looking livery on that Ferrari. Actually, I don't mind that Ferrari livery at all. That looks really, really nice. Nicely contoured. All the different highlights and all the right spots. It just really sets that car off nicely. And we watch him come down to the chicane. Taking the curbs nicely. Kicked up a little bit of dust on the second one. Beautifully judged. He's on his way. He's currently sat up in 5th overall at the moment, 3rd in class. He's actually not that far behind Rob Dunt. He's actually up on his PB here, Anthony Graham. So if he keeps this pace up, he'll jump to the top of the tree in terms of the GT Pro A guys.
Osbrob's just qualified 3rd, obviously being in an LMP2 car, but he's only about 8/10 ahead of Brock Harvey.
Yeah, well, not only that, Anthony Graham has jumped them all. So Graham's jumped a couple of spots. Great job, Anthony Graham. But Brock Harvey's on a bit of a lap too, sneakily trying to get a bit of a tow from this Lamborghini here that is directly behind. Now, I'm not sure if that's David Keane. We can tell now by the side of the car it says Keno, because there's two cars that look alike. It's David Keane and Andrew Hall.
And light blue accents on the top of the headlights for that car.
Yep. But I think Brock Harvey got a really nice slingshot there. And let's see what he does.
Very aggressive, though.
It's very aggressive, but he still doesn't beat Anthony Graham. So Graham did a very, very good job to get past him there. Rob Dunt's been leapfrogged. Matt Webb, there's that new livery we were talking about in the loose Webb Motorsport in the Bentley, the red and black coloured car. It's been updated. He's actually just been bumped again. So Lewis Wedding actually just bumped them both down. There's Wedding in the purple and black coloured car. So they are teammates, just slightly different liveries. And Wedding put in a really good lap at the death there because he was down in 14th and finally found some pace, but still not able to get to the top of the tree. Battle. There will be a tasty battle.
Draper is the last one on track. He's about to come across the line.
So here's Draper, currently 12th, goes up to 10th. So he bumps Matt Schwass and Foley down as well. And Matt Schwass actually the leading Pro B runner ahead of about 4 or 5 Pro A guys, but then Jaden Draper has just jumped up above him. So good to see Matt Schwass mixing it with a number of guys as well.
Yeah, he's done quite well for himself. So that's the end of qualifying. Stairs is going to go listen in on the driver's briefing, and we're going to bring you approximately 5 minutes of whatever we can come up with while we wait for the race to start.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to have a look at the different varieties of cars that are probably in this field, and you can see as we're cycling through the different types of cars that have arrived. I mean, like I said before, we've got Porsches, we've got Dodges, we've got Lamborghinis, we've got an XCs, we've got a couple of Ferraris, a couple of Cadillacs. We've really got a good mix in GT3 across both Pro A and Pro B. So it'd be interesting to see what the different strengths and weaknesses of these cars are. Interestingly, Anthony Graham's lap time of a 44.033, the lead Pro A runner, right down to Cale Parkinson, who was 19th and Brian Walsh, who was 20th. Their best time was a 48.1 and a 48.3 respectively. So we've got about a 4-second gap in terms of GT3 first in Pro A all the way down to last in Pro B. So these cars are identical in terms of specs. If you put a Pro A guy into a Pro B, car driven by a Pro B driver, you'd still find him up the pointy end. But it just goes to show, Bagsy, that it's all down to the driver in a lot of these cases, isn't it? Because some of those cars we know are quick, and just the drivers and their confidence levels, that's all it is in terms of the lap time and why there's such a difference.
Yeah, it's definitely for the GT3s, it's down to the driver. LMP2s, obviously, also down to the driver, but they have much faster cars. However, if we see some of the LMP2 guys getting some severe damage potentially that requires them to pit and get it fixed and spending multiple minutes in the pits, then they could find themselves behind the GT3 car. And obviously, if they DNF, they're not getting any points and they're not finishing the race. So, because we have such a small LMP2 field, there is the chance of a GT3 winning this race if something happens. We saw last year, the 2017 24 Hour of Le Mans, there was a period in the race where there was a LMP2 car leading because all the LMP1 cars were having issues. Similar thing here, except LMP2 is our top class, so we could have a GT3 winning the race.
Certainly, it's a very real possibility, although this is a power track, and a lot of the tracks that we do visit are power tracks, so you expect that, well, the LMP2 cars will bugger off into the distance, but there's only 3 of them here. We're hopefully expecting a much larger turnout, so the guys that haven't been in for qualifying and obviously will not make the race, they're obviously going to be behind in the points. So guys, if you're watching the stream, come on, get in here and get involved, because we want to see a full field, potentially upwards of 30 cars. We've only got 20. But let's have a look here on the forward-facing cam of Rob. So he's in Johnny Kirkham's 666 Racing entry car as he negotiates turn 1. Flick it right, turn 2. Left, turn 3. Past the pit exit. Hard on the anchors for the right-hander at turn 4. Wait to get on the power. So you can see the car squirming a little bit as he tries to put the power down. Now he comes up to the right left-hander at turn 5. And now hard on the anchors for 6. Another right-hander. Get the power down. Up to turn 7. The left-hander. Very important turn this, because if you can get the right entry, carry a nice turn of speed onto the banking, then you'll set yourself up nicely for this run all the way around the banking. That right hand side copping a punishing as you continue to accelerate. Heading down towards the chicane. Through the chicane. Left over right, right over left. And now back out onto the banking. And there's a very, very, very long, hard on the power. Ooh, having some issues here with the cameras. You see him come down to the line. And 41-0 that time around for Rob.
Yeah, he obviously hasn't had too much time in this car, but his times are improving quite considerably compared to his qualifying time.
Yeah, he's just getting familiar with the car, having not made it into practice as well. So apologise for the camera issues that we seem to be having. I will endeavour to keep that running for you properly throughout the race. Probably worthwhile as he spins there, Rob. So he'll get himself going again. Probably something that we probably should make mention though too, Bagsy, is even though this race is taking place on the East Coast, and the second race actually taking place on the East Coast, not too far away from Daytona, it's over at Sebring in a couple of weeks' time, there's actually quite a fair bit of nasty Mother Nature elements going on the west coast of the United States at the moment. There's plenty of wildfires. California been very, very hardly hit, especially. Some wildfires across about 12 or 13 states, and a state of emergency has been declared there. So for any of the international viewers who watch the stream from time to time or watch this after the fact, especially if you're over in the US, we're thinking of you every now and again. When this happens, Australia does tend to lend its support in terms of sending firefighters to fight alongside the Americans, as we've done numerous times in war as well, and it's a good showing of mateship whenever that happens. So we hope that you all get those fires under control soon, and that you can begin to rebuild your lives. So we're thinking of you, even though we're racing on the other side of your continent in the virtual world. In the real world, we hope everything looks up for you soon.
I've said Nella. We're halfway through this warm-up session, and Stairs, who's currently sitting on the driver's briefing, is setting us a few tidbits of what's being said. Some of the biggest things, you may have seen the pit exit is basically feeds directly onto the racing line for turn 4. So they're being, I wouldn't say beaten into them with a stick, but it's being heavily told that you need to be careful on your pit exits, or you will be getting a penalty.
Yeah, it's a very unusual sort of pit exit as well, because of where the racing line actually is. And you can see just as one of the cars tours down the pit lane there in front of Shot, is you come off the oval part of the section down the same pit lane that normally is used for NASCAR competition, and then you feed on the inside of turn 1, you bypass turns 2 and 3, and then effectively come out side by side on the racing line with turn 4. So those cars that wanting to take the right-hander for turn 4 at maximum tilt, they'll be wanting to get over to the left-hand side of the track as quickly as possible, and they're always going to be having to look in their left-hand mirror to see what's going on. So Jaden Draper's just moved. Now, we've been focusing in on him while we've been talking, and you'll see how this pit lane looks as he comes out in his BMW. So he gets the green light to leave the pit lane now. There's the witch's hats there. You'll see here they're on the inside for turn 1, so wall separates them quite comfortably. Then get up to speed. There's turns 2 and 3, and you'll now see the feed in for turn 4. There's the blend line, and the cars, basically the cars that come out of the pit lane have a straight shot onto the racing line, whereas the cars that are already on track will be wanting to try and merge over as quickly as possible to take that preferred line into turn 4. So that's going to be an action spot that we're going to look towards during the race. Also, something that's come up in the driver's briefing we've been relayed to by Stairs is a focus on the GT3 cars holding their line when they're being rounded up by the LMP2 cars. Now, this was a topic that has come up a couple of times before, especially in some of the other endurance racing events that have been run, is that it's not necessarily up to the GT3 cars to get off the racing line. The onus is on the overtaking car to get the job done. If the GT3 car wants to move out of the way early and sees it coming, like if they were on the back straight here and they moved over to let the LMP2 car by, fair enough. But if it's in a situation such as on the infield section of the course, the GT3s are not obligated to get off the racing line. The onus is on the car behind doing the overtaking to find an opportunity to get it done. Because if the GT3 car accidentally tries to move out of the way and the LMP2 car is there, disaster.
Yeah, the other thing that's been discussed is needing to maintain 120 k's an hour when at the start of the race, because we don't want some people getting too big an advantage at the start, especially when it's on this oval section going to the first corner. We've got to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. That will be a rolling start as per what we've always had in GT3 competition, so the same applies in the endurance racing world as well, with the LMP2 and the GT3 in this multi-category format, or multi-class format we should say. We've only got just under a minute until the practice session expires, so the driver's briefing is over, and a few cars have ventured out onto track just to see how the car feels in anticipation of this 2-hour event. Still a good turnout, 20 cars out of a 30 car sign-up grid is not too bad. We wanted to see a few more of the LMP2 cars, so we've only got 3 out of 8. So hopefully we get a few more for the next round coming out at Sebring in a few weeks' time. Bagsy, who's your pick? Who do you think is going to win the honours in each class at this in this particular fashion? I mean, it's pretty much flip a coin in terms of LMP2, but GT3 A and B are probably going to be very, very hotly contested.
I'm not sure if it's flip a coin for LMP2 because Jamie Snow's faster than Matt Williams, but I think Matt Williams will be more consistent. So that's, I mean, I'm about to follow up by saying this could go either way. So in fact, you are correct. It is a coin flip. But despite that, on the other hand, Anthony Graham, Brock Harvey have all been showing good pace. Lewis Wedding, you can't ever count out. He's quite a good racer, but in a different car, so that may factor into him going a bit slower. So, but Wedding's going to be my pick from a bit further back.
Well, practice has finished, qualifying has finished, warm-up and the driver's briefing have finished, and now the 2 hours of Daytona will get underway in the next couple of minutes. We're just waiting on cars to be gridding up. You can see they're gridding up on the oval, and the pace car will take them around, peel off into the pit lane, and then we will be underway. Just waiting on a few cars to get onto the grid. The LMP2 cars, the last few to make it onto the grid. As the clock continues to tick down, they've got about half a minute to get themselves sorted.
15 seconds left for them to get on the grid, but they do, for some reason, like to wait as long as possible to, I don't know, maybe they like increasing the chances of not making it to the track in time. Not sure.
Well, it's extremely good to see such a large amount of cars. Could have been larger if we had a few more of the LMP guys turn up, but nonetheless, we've got a grid to go through. And LMP2 category, well, it's Jamie Snow on the pole, followed by Matt Williams. You can see Jamie Snow there in that HDP or car. Here comes the pace car out of the pits to pick up the field. Matt Williams, he's second in the class of the LMP2. And then Ozrob filling in for Johnny Kirkham in his 666 Racing, his third in class. GT3, Bagsy, Anthony Graham. What's happened to Anthony Graham? He's stuck in the pit lane, so something's happened there. I reckon he might have missed the start. I'm not sure if he was gridded up, or something's happened there to him.
Because he's past the pit exit line.
Well, something's happened to Anthony Graham, so that's a horrid amount of luck there. Brock Harvey is there in 5th place, and Lewis Wedding in 6th. In the Bentley Continentals, who cycle through. Rob Dunt in that Viper. Look, you're right, it does look like a cat, doesn't it? Matt Webb sitting there in 8th in the other Bentley Continental. Greg Turra and Jaden Draper in a pair of BMW M6s rounding out your top 10. So from 11th down, Bagsy, take it away. Who have we got?
Just before I go through that, we're hearing that Anthony Graham's game has crashed, which is very unfortunate to have technical issues right at the start there.
Very, very strange.
Anyway, Matt Schwass in 11th in the BMW, next to ahead of Brenton Foley in the Corvette. We've got Lewis Cugley in the quite ugly. I forget which car that is.
That's a Corvette.
Is that a Corvette?
Sorry, no Corvette. Sorry, Cadillac ATS. Sorry, that's a Cadillac ATS.
Cadillac. I was
looking at the wrong one. I was looking at the one next door.
I'm always struck by the ugliness of that car, and it struck me dumb temporarily there. Scott Morrill in 13th, David Keane in 14th, Philip Boak in 15th place for PBF Race Engineering, Brendan Ross in the titular Brendan Ross team in 16th in that Corvette, wonderful yellow Corvette that. Got Luke Joyner for Joyner Motorsports, Kale for Parkinson Motorsports, Brian Walsh in the Brian Walsh Momo car. He's brought that livery over from the GT3 season. And bringing up the rear is Glenn Miles.
Well, we're just negotiating the chicane at the moment, and then we'll get ourselves ready to roll. And the LMP2 cars out in front. We expect that they'll nick off pretty darn quickly, and we know they're about 7 to 8 odd seconds a lap quicker than the GT cars behind. So, shame for Anthony Graham. He's unfortunately out of the running for this particular race before it even gets started.
Yeah, it's not the way you want to start the season, sadly, but it's one of these things that happens, and we can't really restart for every game crash, or else we'd be here all night. So it is a shame, but
and
he's our part of this game.
And he'd had a good run of form in the GT3 series as well. So pace car is in, and the green light has been shown, and as we suspected, the LMP2 cars have gotten away rather smartly. Jamie Snow holds a 3/4 of a second advantage over is it? Oh, it's actually over Ozrob, who's on the inside of Matt Williams there. So Matt won't be too happy about that. But nonetheless, they're away. We look a bit further back. Brock Harvey's got a very good start in the Lotus XGs, so applying that power well, followed by Lewis Wedding. So he's up. We've actually got a safety car. We've got a safety car already. So what's gone on down the field? Something has happened. The pits have been closed.
Crash at the back between Lewis Cugley and David Keane.
Yeah, there they are. So there's
ended up in the wall.
Cugley and Keane. So let's see if we can get a bit of a replay as to what happened there. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of push and shove going on, and Cugley actually got a tank slapper on, hit the wall, and Keane into him. So all the cars behind, thankfully, taking a bit of avoiding action. But that is the cause of our very first safety car.
Seems like Cugley's having some issues finding reverse. He's been pressing buttons to try and get reverse. He seems to have turned the engine off potentially just then, but he's got it back going, but he can't find the button for reverse, which is unfortunate because he's quite stuck in that wall there.
Yeah, we're just looking here at David Keane. That car doesn't look like it has too much damage.
Back to the pits.
And Cugley looks like he may have retired from this race, and yeah, looks like he's out. So shame for Lewis Cugley. He's had a relatively good run in, I think he's in the TCC series as well, Bagsy, correct me if I'm wrong, having had quite a nice run, and first race out in the new WEC format, and he's out of it. So we've lost 2 Pro A runners already in this series before we've even turned the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's not ideal for that, but luckily it's the GT3 field is fairly deep, so while we will miss them on this grid, it's not the death of the race battle.
No, certainly not. Well, they'd skipped out to a couple of second advantage, the LMP2 cars, quite quickly, and even Brock Harvey had skipped away ahead of Lewis Wedding very, very quickly as well. So they'll now come under the control of the safety car. The pits are closed, so new rule for this World Endurance Championship Series is that the pits will be closed on the first safety car lap, and then you can come in after that. I don't think we'll see any takers unless there's any damage to be repaired. So we might see David Keane pop his head into the pits in that Lamborghini at the back of the pack, depending on if there's any damage or not.
The thing is that if you wanted to get yourself onto a different strategy, you might consider coming in at the first available opportunity, if that could potentially make it so that you don't have to pit later in the race. So,
well, either way, it's going to be 3 stops, isn't it, Bagsy? I think we were talking about the cars are going to get to somewhere around. Oh, Lewis Wedding goes very wide on the grass there. Don't know what he was thinking, but we know that some of the cars are probably going to stop around about 3 times anyway. This is not going to shorten the race too significantly. I think you're still going to want it with a 3 stop, but if you wanted to go something alternate where you're not pitting with everybody else at the same time, then yes, absolutely. Come on in under the safety car, get it over and done with, and then that way you're free to run your own race, hopefully in some clean air, or even at the back of the pack when everybody else peels in. But the only drama you might have there is if you're following a car for a bit too long than you would anticipate, then you're only going to hurt those new tyres that you end up putting on, and probably not going to gain that much of an advantage. Actual fact, you probably lose out.
Yeah, the thing is, particularly with this track, is that on the large banking, if you've got grippier tyres, you can just drive around, clear around the outside of someone fairly easily and gain that speed on. So I don't think it would be too much of an issue if you're on much fresher tyres. If you're on tyres that are only a little bit fresher, you definitely have that issue. But if you've come in so much off schedule that you've got much bigger tyre advantage, I think you can be able to get past quite easily.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on this time around, because we expect that the pits will be open.
I believe they might be. I think are they closed? Because this is the first full safety car lap, so I believe they closed for this lap and then opened. The
pits were closed immediately as the safety car was called, and we'll see what happens. It may be closed for this lap. We'll wait to see what the game throws up. Nonetheless, we didn't get too much running in lap 1.
Yeah, pretty much turn 2 immediate drama. Just a couple of things to note from the start. It was, I believe, it was Matt Webb who, coming into the first corner, he outbraked himself rather dramatically, and at the exit of turn 1, there is a tyre barrier that stops cars from skipping the infield section, essentially, that he came oh so close to colliding with. So
the pits are open. Sorry, Bagsy. Pits are open, and
Foley
at the moment,
pitting.
I'm going to say we have one taker, and it is Brenton and Philip Boak as well. So Boak is in, and you said Foley's in as well. So Boak and Foley, now they're out of the same team. That's what PBF Race Engineering. Well, there they are, line astern.
And these
tyres
guys,
and topping off. So this is an interesting point. Now, Foley, who's just ahead next in the pit lane here, he's transitioned from a Ferrari in the GT3 series into a Corvette for this endurance series. So a little bit of new machinery to get familiar with for this race. But that's an interesting strategy play. Now, they're on, as I said before, they're in the same team, PBF Race Engineering. So they'll drop to the back of the pack. But they're now on an alternate strategy. But is that a bit of a disaster? They don't have to share a pit boom, thank goodness. But they are line astern in the pit lane. So do you think there's any, do you think they should have maybe come in a lap apart, Bagsy, or do you think that they can probably survive being line astern in the pits?
No, that's not an issue. I don't think. There's plenty of space in this pit lane to move in and out. I think it's a good strategy call because they're getting together. They're going to be on. They're going to be on a different cycle to everyone else, and also these guys they were two of the real up and comers in the first season of events we had. They started in Pro-Am and were having ding dong battles throughout it, and were so good they were promoted to Pro B fairly early. And they're both quite good drivers and have pulled some excellent results in the previous endurance series, being ahead of many of the Pro A and B drivers several times. So I think this is a good team strategy play, and they'll be able to help pull each other up the field. And any people they pass here is gravy because they are going to have that little bit of extra life and fuel time.
Yeah, not only that, they'll probably be drafting partners as well. Now, you can also see that they haven't got those little lights on the front of their windshields to tell you what class they're in. So to fill the viewers in, Brenton Foley, who's in the yellow-fronted Corvette, he's actually in Pro A. You've got Philip Boak there in the red-fronted Corvette. He is in Pro B. So they're not in the same class, but they are racing the same car. It travels at the same speed, has exactly the same technical specs, same setup options, etc., etc. Just the drivers are classed differently, just with their abilities. One being a little bit quicker than the other, so he's in the quicker category, and Boak in the Pro B category. What I also want to look at here is David Keane. So he's in one of two Lamborghinis that look like this. Now, only one of them racing today. Now that one in the hands of Andrew Hall. So he's not in this race, but there's two Lamborghinis that look like that. There's two LMP2 cars in the same livery. One of them obviously not here as well, which is Greg Nangle. And Jamie Snow in the other and fifth car that doesn't look like any of those. One of these things is not like the other. And they're all out of the Far Canal Racing stable. Now, a number of these guys are friends. They've all come together and said, you know what, we're going to form a race team, and if we can't win something, then we can't win anything at all. Lights on the pace car are out, so we're hopefully going to get a restart, and the safety car is in. Now, Jamie Snow's gone really early here, so the green flag has dropped real early, and he's paid ultimate attention and shoots out to a 3/4 of a second advantage. Matt Williams holds over Ozrob this time. Behind them, Brock Harvey managed to get a good restart as well ahead of Lewis Wedding. Locks up a little bit into turn 1. Jaden Draper's moved up 4 spots, so he's had a good opening to this particular race. He started down in 10th. He's now up to 6th and holding very, very nicely in that BMW, trying to close in on Wedding, who's closed right up on Brock Harvey. There's a nice little battle going on back here. Rob Dunt heading a little train that is behind him. He's got Matt Webb, Greg Tara, Murrell. He's got Schwass, Joyner, Ross. They're all in there. What a long train that is.
From the back, the two PBF racing cars have already passed two people, Glenn Miles and David Keane.
Yeah, they've already passed those guys. Very, very quickly as well.
Never mind, Philip Boak has just spun.
Yeah, we can see him on the very back of shot there as well. We just cycle back through to him. Yeah, he's had a lose coming into the second part
Too much
of the
curb
infield
by
things.
the
It's
looks
just
of
too much curb. Sakine, he moves back forward and Boak drops back down underneath. Oh, we see that's that's Glenn Miles. We just saw him back a shot, just understeered way wide, trying to take too much into that particular turn that takes you onto the banking. Can he get it out of the wall? Yes, he can. Can he get first gear? Yes, he can. So we avoid a local yellow. We avoid a safety car. So thank goodness for that. But he understeered horribly wide into that turn. And
Scott Morrill has just had a massive moment into the chicane. He almost cleaned up Greg Tara. He's lost a couple of positions for his trouble in that Porsche there.
Well, these LMP2 cars have really nicked off in a big way. Jamie Snow, a 40.0.
Just behind them, the lead, there's a change for the lead, the Bentley.
And there it is.
And so the Bentley of...
That's Lewis Wedding. Lewis Wedding has gotten...
Mr. Wedding being in there.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of an interesting thing considering he's in a purple car. He was in a pink car before. And behind these guys, it's Jaden Draper who's holding off Rob Dunt. Rob Dunt threatening that BMW as well. So some great racing. I think we're going to stick with the GT cars for a little bit. We've got another full course caution. So what's going on here? We've had yet another issue that's called the safety car.
In turn 1, Kale has had an issue in his M3 there.
Yeah, so there he is. Let's see if we can pick up what happened there.
He's outbraked himself by the looks of it.
Yep, so here he is. Oh, he went way deep. In actual fact, he caught the back of one of the Corvettes as well. One of the yellow Corvettes. So most unfortunate for Kale.
It's Brendan Ross.
Yeah, it was Brendan Ross that he caught as well. So thankfully no damage done there. But Brendan Ross just completely unexpected. That car to come flying in at such the pace that it did. And unfortunately, Brendan Ross, an innocent victim.
Yeah,
Kale was miles too fast into that. Miles too fast into that first turn.
Yeah, it was unfortunately. Hopefully, not too much damage has been done to Brendan Ross. He looks like his car seems to be okay there. From the looks of it, Kale has lost several positions from that. So
yeah, well, let's have a look at Kale's car here as he comes down. So it doesn't look like there's too much damage on the front of that car. You can see there's a couple of actually they're the winglets that are on the front corner where he did strike.
What this is a godsend for is Glenn Miles, who was going to have to pit to fix damage from that impact, but because of the safety car, he's not going to go a lap down, luckily.
Well, he's still going to have to do another couple of laps before he can come in and repair some damage. So for Glenn Miles, where's he? He's on the banking at the minute, still coming down to the chicane. But he understeered horribly wide into the turn that brings you onto the banking. And we'd spoken about that turn. If you can carry a little bit more speed on that line, it'll gain you an extra couple of kilometres an hour down that banking and down that back straight into the chicane. So it's worth taking the gamble, but you've got to get it right. And we're hearing as well that there might also be pit team orders again at PBF Race Engineering. Now, those guys took advantage of the safety car last time around to go on an alternate strategy, and they might be doing so again, we're hearing. We'll wait to see what goes on there. But it's the old NASCAR adage, isn't it, Bagsy? You never resist an opportunity to put fuel in a race car.
Yeah, it's... obviously, with NASCAR, it's a bit different in terms of, the fresh tyres do a lot more for you than they would in one of these cars. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, at this point in the race, it's not like your lap's down. It's not like you're losing too much. So if you're just able to put yourself onto an alternate strategy more and more, you might as well pit now and take the pain now for the massive gain later.
Well, this is certainly not the racing we'd hoped to see. We've had a couple of laps in between cautions. We didn't get much in before the first one came out, and we only got about 3 laps in, or 2 or 3 laps in before the second one's come out now. But let's go through the order and let's have a look. So Jamie Snow, Matt Williams and Oz Rob, they're the only 3 LMP2 cars in the field, and they are currently where they started. Lewis Wedding's up 2 places, started 6th. He's now leader in GT3A from Brock Harvey, who started 5th and capitalised at the start. Mainly
Just
by
the difference in the size between that Bentley and that Lotus is just absolute. That Lotus is an absolutely tiny car.
It's a dwarf in a field of giants, isn't it?
It's like watching, for those who follow Aussie rules football. It's like watching Eddie Betts going through a pack of ruckmen almost. He's just zipping about everywhere, that little car.
It is. Jaden Draper's moved up 4 spots, so he started 10th. He's now up to 6th. A good result for the BMW driver. Rob Dunt's where he started in 7th. Hasn't gone any further forward or further back. Had a bit of a challenge on Draper last time around. Matt Webb's where he started in 8th. Greg Turra also where he started in 9th. Matt Schwass up 1 spot to 10th. Luke Joyner. So Luke Joyner, he is in Pro B. He's up 7 places from where he started. So great job, Luke Joyner. And then you've got Scott Murrell. He's up 2 places as well. And a couple of guys at the back. Now, there's a few guys that have peeled off into the pits. The pit lane is open.
4 people.
And we've got Foley in. So the rumours were true. He's in. And behind him we're going to have, looks like Brendan Ross. So he's in as well. Then you've got Brian Walsh and Philip Boak. So a couple more takers on pit road this time.
Greg Miles as well coming in.
And Miles, yeah, we suspected Miles would come in as well. We could see him in the back. Look, he actually locks it up. That Ferrari, a bit of a sad and sorry sight at the moment.
Seen better days, but luckily for him, he will be able to catch up to the field because the safety goes out.
He will have some damage to repair, but he will be able to catch up to the back of the pack. So the safety car falls for him at a very fortunate time. He's not going to go a lap down, and he can actually pit, get his damage fixed, get onto an alternate strategy, and stay on the lead lap.
Everyone changed tyres there apart from Glenn Miles. He's the only one not changing tyres. Obviously, he wants to spend as much time getting damage fixed, reduce the possibility of going a lap down.
Yeah, well, he's on... I think it was on the move for a minute there. Yeah, he's on the move now. So even if he did get his tyres changed, I still think he probably would catch up to the back of the pack anyway. So maybe not an interesting move not changing tyres. I'm not sure what that will gain, but it depends on what the tyre wear is like as well, apparently. I don't have much information on that.
He's worn his tyres. I'm surprised he went because he's worn his tyres much more significantly than the people near the front. So just probably because of locking up from that damage. So you'd think he would have changed, but that's his decision to make. Maybe he's more comfortable on that set of tyres.
Well, he's not that far behind Brendan Ross, who pitted ahead of him. Got the lights ablaze there on the Corvette. Brian Walsh and Philip Boak's already caught up to the back of the pack. So this just goes to show that the pace that the cars are doing, he probably could have changed tyres and got going. I'm actually hearing some reports that Foley had hit the wall on the pit exit, so giving that a bit of a rub. So hopefully that won't hamper his progress too much. He's up there in 15th at the moment. We've only lost 2 men. We lost Lewis Cugley on lap 1 when the safety car was called. When he hit the pit wall, got a bit of a tank slapper on, hit the wall. And we lost Anthony Graham before the drop of the green flag, actually on the pace lap, when his game unfortunately crashed. So we started with 21. We are down to 19 runners. And we've only completed 6 laps. This will be the 7th when we get to the green flag, hopefully this time around.
Hearing that the safety car will be in this lap.
So safety car in this lap. So the working on the tyres to get them up to temp begins furiously. Some electing not to do that.
Jamie Snow testing his brakes there and almost caused Matt Williams and Ozrob to run directly into the back of them. Yeah, checking Lewis Wedding quite wisely giving a fairly wide berth to the LMP2 cars.
Yeah, I think Ozrob's now sort of detected that as well, because going into turn 1 you need your brakes. It's a hard braking spot and you definitely want some temperature in them, but you certainly don't want to be brake checking everybody else. So if I was Jamie Snow here, I'd probably just be easing off the throttle a little bit and then getting ready to gun it, and then just maybe drag the brake a little bit into turn 1 just to get a little bit of temperature in before you apply it fully. Lights out
on the safety car.
Lights are out. And the field
green flag is out.
And the green flag's out, and Snow gets the jump again. It wasn't as good as what he had last time, but it's still a good jump. Matt Williams will still have enough to defend from Ozrob. But meanwhile, back in the pack, Brock Harvey's been swallowed up. He's been caught napping by Jaden Draper, and Draper moves up to 5th place. Wedding will hold 4th. Oh, there's been a massive accident back there. A massive, massive crash. And that looks like it's one of the Ferraris. That is Luke Joyner, and back there as well, there's Glenn Miles is trying to negotiate that. Is that... no, it's not Cale back there. It's Matt Schwass is back there as well. Dear, oh dear, what on earth has happened there? Let's have a look on the replay. And there was a slow car. It was, and just straight into the back. Oh, and complete disaster. It was actually a very slow car there. It was, that was Matt Webb, I think, as well, in the other Bentley Continental that was going very, very slow. So it was Joyner and Schwass, and just Joyner ran completely in the back of Schwass, just had nowhere to go. Wasn't expecting that for sympathy. David Keane actually spun as well. So a little bit disappointing, but we get a third safety car in quick succession. So 3 safety cars inside the first half an hour of racing. This is now turning into a race of who can stay out of trouble, Bagsy.
Yeah, it's going to be a long time in the pits for some of these guys as well, because there is large amounts of damage. Luke Joyner and Matt Schwass are both trying to get back to the pits.
They're just trying to limp it around, but have a look at the state of Schwass's car. There's no bonnet, bumper damage, door damage, no rear wing, rear bumper damage, smoking as it comes through the turn under brakes as well. Then when you look back to Luke Joyner, again, massive dent in the rear bumper, no rear wing, front end damage, side-on damage. I would not be surprised if they can't repair some of these cars. We're actually also hearing there's a few cars that were accelerating before the line was a bit of a problem too. I'm not sure whether that's now being relayed to the drivers as something that they need to pay attention to. But Webb he appeared to be slow, but he was waiting for the line to come up before accelerating. I'm not sure what's said in the driver's briefing, but that's why he appeared so slow, and some guys just tried to take advantage of it. Whether or not Jaden Draper did the same on Brock Harvey remains to be seen, but we'll look at that after the race. There's a few discussion points emerging out of this race already inside the first 25 minutes, and the story at the moment is safety cars breed safety cars.
Yeah, it's not... it's definitely been closing up the field repeatedly, and it's happened again, but hopefully people can be a little bit more careful. The rules state that you're not allowed to pass before the line, but we did see some people passing before the line, but that was probably due to some people being slower and not speeding up in time. Webb, who was much slower, said he went when it said green, but we saw other cars going a lot earlier than that, so I'm not sure if he missed that potentially, or if he was relying on something different. But yeah, it had gone green much before he actually started moving.
We'll wait to see what the outcomes of those will be. I'm sure the stewards will be having a bit of a look at that after this race. When they can't issue penalties in the race, it'll all be post-race reviews. And we're still seeing that some of the guys that were involved in that accident are still struggling to get onto the back of this pack. So Schwass and Joyner really, really struggling to get onto the back of this pack in time to get into the pit, so they don't lose too much time. Schwass is actually not doing too bad a job, but Joyner struggling to get going. In actual fact, I think that Joyner may have come into the pits while he's just very, very slow through turn 1. It looked like he may have actually gone into the pits before they opened, but he's almost certainly out of the running of this race and miles behind the pack. Well, the safety car, the 001 HSV license-plated Camaro is certainly getting a run around this famed Daytona International Speedway road course today. And what we were hoping was going to be a great spectacle here at Daytona for the opening round of the AMS World Endurance Championship is certainly not living up to expectations at the minute, but we've still got an hour and a half for it to redeem itself and present us with a cracking race.
Yeah, see, there's still plenty of racing to go so far, and at the moment, you haven't seen too much racing at the moment. You have seen a lot of crashes, which I know some people do come for. We don't like to see it though, because every time there's a crash, it's affecting people's races, and that's what we don't like to see. But at least we know that they are battling, and they're not leaving anything on the track, but apart from many rear wings and bonnets, which we'd rather they keep attached.
Yes, so pits are open. Which takers do we have this time? And it's the same takers again. It's Boak and Foley. And Boak's been given a stop-go there. I'm not sure what that's for overtaking someone under yellow flags, but that's going to hurt his chances quite substantially. You might want to get onto that, Bagsy, to have a look at what's going on. That's very, very strange. You'd get a stop-go for coming into the pits. You normally get a drive-through for speeding in the pits.
I believe that may be due to passing under the safety car, which he didn't really, because he was coming into the pits. He may have been a bit too... and
he clouts a cone for good measure on the exit of the pits as well.
I think that that penalty might be cleared due to that being a game issue more than him actually doing something wrong.
Yeah, he might have come into the pits at a little bit too quick a speed, and he's actually rejoined the track ahead of Keane. Now he lets Keane go past because he's probably been told to stay behind him. So smart move there. We expect that penalty probably going to be removed. Boak actually didn't take any tyres. Foley did take some tyres and had a little bit of damage that he had from exiting the pit lane on the last tour to be fixed. Matt Schwass is in. He looks like he's got some damage repaired. He's got a rear wing again, that's good, but he obviously doesn't have a bonnet. So he'll be right for a little while. And Luke Joyner, he's still out on track at the minute. He can come in and pit, but when he pits, he's ultimately going to go a lap down. So that's unfortunate luck for Joyner, because where he is on the track at the moment is coming through the last part of the oval, and the pack is coming onto the oval off the infield at the moment.
Copy, guys.
G'day, and we have joined by Brock Harvey. Brock Harvey, fill us in, mate.
Hey, how are you, dude?
Doing well. Talk about your race so far. A bit of a race of who can stay out of trouble, but that little Exige is holding its own at the minute. It's not doing too badly.
Nah, it's doing well. It's probably a little bit more tunable than I thought it was. So it really responds to setup changes really well. So we're able to get a real good feel for it. It's under the safety car, I've been swamped twice by the bigger, powerful cars behind me, though. So it's going to be fun if this keeps happening for us.
Well, certainly looks like you got your hands full on every restart. So you're going to get one in a minute. So we'll let you go. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, mate.
Just got word through from the race management channel as well that Boak's penalty for the stop-go has been removed, as it was generated incorrectly. So he did overtake a car going into the pits, but by virtue of the way that the pit lane is designed, it triggered the stop-go, and that penalty has been rescinded.
Just looking, Luke Joyner's actually got going ahead of the field, so he's not going to go a lap down.
Well, he's still in the pit lane at the minute, so he's going to have to get a wriggle on, though.
He's got plenty of time there. If you have a look on the track, they're only coming out of turn 4 now, whereas he's coming out of the pits now.
Well, he's actually coming out of the pits now, but the field is actually on the banking coming down to the pit lane entry now. So Joyner's going to stay ahead. He'll obviously be lapped by the LMP2 cars if we stay the way they are. Actually, lights are still on the safety car, so that's interesting.
It looks like it's going to go.
So we're going to get another lap. So Joyner is going to get onto the back of the field. So that's a very, very lucky break for Luke Joyner. He will get onto the back of this pack, so safety car going a lap longer than expected. That's a little bit unusual, so maybe a little bit of extra damage to clean up in turn number 1, or cars out of position that need to get themselves sorted.
There was quite a wallop into the tyre barrier down in that first corner, so probably just some marshals checking it out, making sure it's all kosher down there.
Yep, certainly looks like it. Meanwhile, we're approaching a half hour gone in this
safety
race.
Car we're hearing will be in this lap.
So safety car going to be in this particular lap. So Joyner should catch up to the back of the pack, and he's got the pace he's going at as well. He'll have warm tyres as well, which will be really, really good for him. He's got a rear wing this time. Bumper's been fixed. All the dents most of the dents look like they're gone. Unlike the man that he ran into, he does have a bonnet. even though the engine in this Ferrari is in the back. But he's going to have some very, very warm rubber underneath him, Luke Joyner, so I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to put a move on one or two people, but the man he's going to be behind at the restart is the man that he ran into that caused the safety car that we are currently under. And where is the rest of the field? So the rest of the field is just coming through the second half of the infield, or the horseshoe, as we like to call some of these turns, as they turn back on themselves. And the LMP car is now being led out onto the banking for the 11th time. So we've completed 10 laps inside the first half an hour. We expected to have completed a lot more than that. Bagsy, let's talk about strategy. We've gone a half an hour. We've only completed 10. We'll get down to 11 laps this time around. Does this close the strategy up? Can these guys save enough fuel to now make it on 2 stops, or do you still think we have to go 3?
I reckon they might be able to go on 2 stops. At least the GT3 cars, I think, will be able to, because they have a bit, obviously, bigger tanks than our LMP2 cars. It's a hard one, to be honest, because we know they're using somewhere between 2 and 3 litres a lap for the LMP2s, and they have 8-litre tanks, so around about 15 laps, give or take, for the LMP2s. So we're at 11, but I've been under safety car. So I think they're good if they are very careful.
We'll soon find out. Meanwhile, the running order has shown that Schwass has actually stayed in 19th. Joyner's actually been advised to go up to 17th, and I think that's when the yellow flag was called, that's where the field was frozen from, so he's obviously been told to stay there. That's a bit unusual. The lights are still on the safety car. We'll see what happens this time around. We were told that it was going to be coming in. Lights should normally have been out by now.
They turn off very late.
Here we go. Right, so lights are off. Now, has everybody been paying attention? Because Snow's gone very, very early the last few times. And he's gone early again. Those LMP2 cars have gone early, and this time they're much, much, much closer as they roar across the line to complete 11 laps and start their 12th. Snow has only got a very, very small margin this time, and look at Williams close up and Rob close up under the brakes as well for turn 1. Looking back, Wedding holds his own over Jaden Draper. Harvey manages to keep himself straight through turn 1. Doesn't lose a place this time, but it's a nice old snaky train running through the infield as we now come down to turn 4, and Harvey gets a little bit deep into turn 4 than what he'd like, but he doesn't lose a place, but he doesn't gain one either.
Everyone made it through turn 1 okay. I think Glenn Miles...
Oh, we've got a spinner. You spoke too soon, Bags. There's a spinner at the back. It's the Lamborghini of David Keane. I just seen him go round onto the infield. He's got himself sorted and going, but he drops to the back of the field, but he did that all on his own, so I fear. And we'll have a look here on the replay. So he was he was in the mid-pack, came down into turn number 4, and got through turn 4, and just got a little bit too happy on the loud pedal a bit too early, and just toured the infield there. So now back out onto track.
Rob in LMP2 is still right up the chuff of Matt Williams at the moment as they come through the chicane on the back.
Yep.
On the back straight. Apparently, while we were watching the carnage, or not carnage, but the spinner behind, Rob got alongside Matt Williams, but Scruff got him back directly after.
Yep.
So Matt Williams maybe a bit surprised by Rob's pace, considering how far off in qualifying Rob was. So clearly Rob taking to that car like a fish takes to water.
Meanwhile, Lewis Wedding leads the GT3 A class, but have a look at this. Rock Harvey's having to defend rather heavily from Greg Tara. Tara's been all over him since they came out of the chicane, and Tara looking to take a more outside line here. As we see, Draper just locks it up and goes a little bit too deep. He's gone very deep, and that will close the gap from Harvey to Draper, and in turn, we've got a little local yellow flag, but that's now been rescinded down there at the first couple of turns. Draper going a bit deeper again and using quite a lot of curb, carry a fair bit of speed there, managing to stay ahead of the pursuing Lotus and BMW. So Harvey,
Brian Walsh go off at in the back of the field, which has let Foley and Boak back through. So they're both up to 13th and 14th, despite having hit on every single safety car, as Philip Boak and Brian Walsh have run off the track again.
Yeah, well, that would have been the cause of the local yellow at turn number 1 that time around. Meanwhile, Harvey still having to defend from that BMW of Tara behind. Tara closing in little bit by little bit. He's going to have to, if he wants to get it done, he's going to have to get it soon, because the next bit of the circuit they have to come to is the chicane, and I don't think Tara's close enough to make a move. And now the gap is, in actual fact, Harvey was holding his own quite nicely there. And this is where Tara's going to close up, and he does. He closes up an awful lot, but can't do anything with it. And not only that, the Dodge Viper's coming into play here as well. That big old Viper is trying his best to close in the hands of Rob Dunt. Now, Matt Williams does a 39.1, quickest lap of the race so far. Can Tara make any impression on Harvey this time around? Big old Beamer on little old Lotus. In actual fact, the Lotus is pulling away. Not by much, but just by enough to hold his own going into turn 1, as Draper locks up again and goes way deep. Harvey's gone deep as well. That's going to allow Tara underneath, but Draper's got the pair of them blocked, and Tara just squeezes into the gap. Harvey now across the grass. That lets Rob Dunt through. Harvey has lost 2 positions in the space of a couple of corners. The Dodge Viper of Dunt is through. Tara was oh so close to taking another position of Jaden Draper, but Draper defended wonderfully well, and probably rather aggressively as well. Meanwhile, Harvey coming under threat as Draper locks up again, and that allows Tara underneath. Tara's got the high ground. He's actually on the outside this time, so the inside's going to belong to Draper. Draper will hold through this turn that brings them onto the banking and onto the turn.
Tara's got the pace here, though.
Tara's got pace.
Jaden Draper is clearly struggling with that car. He's been locking up left, right, center. He's going high. He's going very high on the banking to try and throw off Greg Tara a bit, but that's just going to give Tara even more of a run on him. He's tucked into that slipstream.
Yeah.
Jaden's gone to the inside.
Look at this on the outside.
Even further inside. This is almost a
the Viper on the outside too was having a look too at Rob Dunt, but wonderfully defended by Draper, but he's under all sorts of pressure, and now the Viper gets underneath of Tara. This is a brilliant scrap. Have a look at this. So Tara didn't anticipate that Rob Dunt was going to get underneath him, and now that big black cat-eyed Viper streaks past and now sets its sights on the yellow BMW M6 of Jaden Draper. Now, is Draper going to outbrake himself into turn 1 this time?
I think Rob Dunt might have this position here. If the last 2 laps are anything to go by, Draper locks up approximately.
Draper's learned his lesson. He's learned his lesson.
He's been a lot more careful there, and it seems like Rob Dunt was almost expecting him because he was a bit more careful too, and almost got Tara right up the back of him again.
All this has allowed Wedding to skip away as well, Bagsy, so he's skipped out to a nice advantage of about 4 seconds over these guys.
Just to say at the front, Matt Williams has, the last 2 laps, Jamie Snow has set the fastest lap, and then it's been immediately eclipsed a half second later by Matt Williams. So the 2 FCR teammates are going out at hammer and tongs to trade fastest lap. There's about a second in between them, but Matt Williams has definitely got the pace to live with Jamie Snow today.
He certainly has, and there's still a long way to go as well. But the battle that we're focused in on is this GT3A battle, and it consists of Jaden Draper, Rob Dunt, Greg Tara, and then to a lesser degree, they're just dropping off the pack a bit, Brock Harvey and Matt Webb trailing. If they can get themselves onto the back of this pack, it's going to be a mighty scrap. They're just stringing themselves out a little bit now, but I reckon Dunt's got some pace here, and we probably just didn't expect that this Viper would have some pace, but he's certainly living with these BMW M6s quite nicely, and he carries so much speed through that chicane as well, does Rob Dunt. He closed the gap down enormously to Jaden Draper in front, and now goes high, but there's definitely no passing there unless you're carrying the speed, so he'll tuck back into the draft. Just needs to keep the engine a bit cool.
Luke Joyner's had an accident coming out of the second turn of the banking, and has spun all the way into the side and lost his rear wing, so that is not good for Luke Joyner.
And we've lost Brian Walsh as well in the midst of things as well, so Dunt on the outside, Dunt locks it up. Draper on the inside. Draper understeers wide. That allows Dunt to close back up. So one gained and one lost, and then the other one lost and the other one gained. So Dunt's looking for a way past, and this is great racing. Now with the high ground or the inside ground, now Dunt gets a much better acceleration out of that turn forward. Look at that! Look at the speed that the Dodge Viper had off of turn 4. He'll be on the outside here for 5. He can hang with it inside for 6, but no. Draper cuts him off and holds station. Great driving by these guys. And look, Turra's now buying back into this. Harvey's buying back into this. Webb's getting closer. So this is becoming quite the battle for best of the rest in GTA at the moment, because Wedding is continuing to skip away and just consistently skipping away at the moment.
Yeah, Rob Dunt is having a very strong race so far. He's a bit weaker coming into the second part of that infield section, but once we get out onto the open sections, that Viper is absolutely going for it. It's that little bit faster than the BMWs, and he's using it to his advantage into turn 1.
He's closing in right now, and watch him through this chicane, because this is where he's particularly strong, Rob Dunt. He closes the gap down quite significantly and gets such better drive out of that last part of the chicane. Look at the gap. Look how close he cuts down to, and he's going to the outside again. He carries so much speed and still trying to hang on the outside.
Where he's going, though, he's going to have the outside line to turn 1, which he doesn't want. He's much better off just tucking in through the whole bank of the oval, getting that slipstream, even bump drafting a little bit. As he goes to the outside as they come across the start-finish line. There are
look at this.
Of a second between them.
He's got the outside again.
Just on the brakes. Rob Dunt gets on there quite early, and Jaden Draper
this is what he's trying. This is what he's trying. He's trying to fox Draper into making an outbraking mistake, and as we said, that Brock Harvey makes one as well. But look at this on the inside, and now to the outside again, Dunt. So can he hang with him around the outside, or is he going to look for the cutback? No, not this time. Draper's akin to it, because Dunt got such a better launch out of that turn 4 last time, but this time Draper holds station, but he's much, much closer, Dunt. And as you said, Bagsy, he's got to stay tucked in coming out of the chicane, and then when Draper just comes off the bottom of the racetrack a little bit, that's his opportunity he's got to take, but he's having none of it. He's trying everywhere to look for an opportunity to pass. Draper going defensive all the way, not taking the ideal lines. Now let's see if Dunt can do it this time. He's much, much closer coming onto the banking than he was last time around. Can he get the move done before the chicane, or is he going to hang on to it and just try and tuck back in as Matt Williams sets a 38.0. Quickest lap of the race. They're trading lap times out there in front. That surpasses Snow's 38.1.
Right, he's gone to the outside of the chicane. He'll probably let up here and let Jane Draper through.
Yeah, he does.
He's taken a more ideal line.
He's mucked it up that time. That was not the ideal line. That's going to allow Tara buys back in. And Dunt's around. Dunt's around. And he's going to have a little local yellow. He's going to be very careful because there's a Corvette coming and a Porsche coming and another Corvette coming. But that move was probably not there. You're right. He was right to tuck back in and wait, but he unfortunately did it just a little bit too late, Bagsy.
That's such a shame. Jane Draper's pit now, so that's very interesting. An early pit stop for Draper.
Well, that's interesting because that's where the battle is. So Draper's obviously had the high ground, thinks, okay, I've got a gap now on someone who's quicker than me. I'm going to come in, set myself up on a different strategy, and then just get my head down in clean air and go for it, because he was being monstered by that Dodge Viper, and the last thing that we wanted to see was that.
Lost about 15 seconds from that spin, but he's now alongside the Corvette of Philip Boak, and he's passed him already. So Rob Dunt with a lot of pace today, more than people probably would have expected, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's going quite well.
So Boak is in Pro B, so he lets his GT3 counterpart in Pro A, Rob Dunt, through. But it'll be interesting to see how Draper goes when he's in clean air.
Greg Tara now as well, so I think there was a mistake from Tara somewhere.
Yeah, there must have been.
Now in 5th, Greg Tara in 6th, and he's got past Brock.
Oh, and Tara has a slide job of coming out onto the braking as well. That lets Harvey back through on the outside, so obviously Tara having a bit of an issue there, but also Matt Webb must have had a good run somewhere as well, because he's been quietly plodding along. And now finds himself up into 2nd place overall in GTA, but he's some 5 seconds behind his teammate, Lewis Wedding. We're also hearing that... So go on, Bagsy.
So Rob Dunt in 11th is right behind Scott Morrill and Brendan Ross, who are going out the chicane. You think he's going to stay behind them for this chicane and then try and get them into turn 1, as we've got Brendan Ross has missed the chicane entirely. So he will lose those positions.
He
and
certainly
have to be
will.
careful on his rejoin.
Meanwhile, we're hearing
Which
Brian
has
Walsh retired with physical cramps, so not good news for Brian Walsh. So hopefully they can get that sorted in the medical tent.
Greg Tara has pit.
So Tara in. So we saw that Tara was having a torrid time coming out of the infield onto the banking. And look at Matt Webb. Matt Webb is locking it up into turn one. We're seeing a lot of lockups into turn one, but
It's a difficult turn one, because you're sort of going. It's a long, you're not fully on the brakes because you can take a lot of speed through it. So
Harvey's
if you're getting
underneath.
a bit too much and trying to turn in.
Harvey's trying to get underneath Matt Webb here. Harvey smells another position. They're losing time to Lewis Wedding, but Brock Harvey trying his best to hang on to the back of that Bentley, as that Bentley locking up again in the infield section, so not ideal. Snow now does a 36.9, so that is miles faster than anything we've ever seen. That's a full 1.1 seconds quicker than Matt Williams' best lap. So Snow's now decided, I've had enough of this, put the hammer down and get going. Where are those guys on track at the minute? So Jamie Snow's at turn 4, heading now down to turn 5 and 6. Matt Williams there and back a shot. They've dropped Aussie Rob quite substantially now, so he's just all on his own some. There he is background going down to turn 4. But Snow and Williams were trading lap times for a while, but Snow just trying his best to break the shackles here. And they're not going to be very far from getting onto the back of some of the GT3 runs. In fact, you can actually see some of them in back a shot. They've already put down a couple of drivers that have pitted, so they've put down Parkinson, Dunt, Draper, Miles and Turra have all gone down a lap because they've stopped. Keane and Schwass are the next cars on the radar for Snow to put down, and they're just at chicane now.
This is another thing people have to keep an eye out for, because if a safety car would come out now, that greatly disadvantages the people who have already pit and ended up a lap down because of it, versus the people who haven't pit yet and aren't quite a lap down, because the safety car picks up the leader of LMP2, not the leader of GT3.
That is correct.
If you're not careful, you have to play your safety car windows carefully, because it can really cost you.
Yep. In actual fact, they're coming up to Luke Joyner, who we know has had some trouble in the pits and accident damage recently. So Snow rounds him up quite nicely before turn 1. And as our pit lane reporter Stairs is pointing out too, we've now completed 20 laps. This is the lap number that we were expecting for our green flag running as far as anybody else would have been able to go. So we'll now see how much fuel saving these guys have been able to do in the 3 safety car periods that we've had in the first 25 minutes of the race, and what this effect does for 2 or 3 stop strategies.
I was going to say that I thought Lewis Wedding had been fuel saving, because he was maintaining about a 4-second gap to Matt Webb as Cale gets a drive-through penalty. I'm assuming
that should be a pit lane speeding offence, we would imagine, or corner cutting. We'll soon find out. But he is currently, I think he's currently actually exited the pit lane as well, or track cut. So
yeah. Lewis Wedding was 4 seconds ahead for several laps in a row, but has now pulled that out to.
He's got 10 seconds on his team, mate.
10 seconons now.
Just by looking at the thing, he's got 10 seconds. He's got a country mile at the moment,
and that's in only about 2 laps. So that's I'm not sure. He's just absolutely put the hammer down now.
Yeah, Matt Williams just getting caught up there a little bit behind Cale, I believe that was.
In the pits, that Lotus in the pits where Matt Webb, who's just gone deep in turn 1, is still out. So Brock Harvey is going to try undercut.
Yep, he certainly is. But Philip Boak sails past Harvey as well. Brennan Ross does. So Boak, remember, is on a different strategy to all the other GT runners, because they've pit a couple of times. Fresh tyres, fuel, so they're going a little bit longer. So potentially, we expect that Boak is definitely going to have to stop one more time. Harvey will have to stop one more time. Just depends on where all the cards fall. So potentially a net gain there for Philip Boak in the long run. We'll see how that plays out.
Taken tyres, and Tara did not take tyres on his stop. So Tara is almost certainly going to jump Brock Harvey here.
Yeah, well, it depends on how much life is in those tyres as well, because we did see Tara having a bit of trouble out of some of the... we did see Tara having a few tyre dramas, or coming off of some of the turns, with the back end getting a bit squirrely. The leaders are coming up to lap 7th and 8th place at the minute.
First LMP2 car in the pits with Ozrob.
So that's a bit different because we think that those cars could have gone a little bit longer. So that's interesting. He's obviously been bleeding time to those guys.
Coming out the pits between Brock Harvey and Jaden Draper here, but I think Brock Harvey is going to get the overcut on Jaden Draper.
So there he is. Brock Harvey comes out and comfortably ahead of Jaden Draper. He's got a second on him. So great job by Brock Harvey to jump there.
Tara's got a 12-second gap on Brock Harvey, which is pretty much from not taking tyres there. So we'll see if that one pays off for Tara.
We'll soon find out. We'll see how long it takes Harvey to gain on him here, because you'll see that the timing screen, it goes up and it goes down depending on where everybody is on track. There's Tara on the left shot there, just going past the timing screen. You'll see him in the background as Harvey comes around this turn here. There is that, you can just see the little blue streak going around the banking. That's Tara. And in actual fact, I think Harvey and Draper are probably gaining a little bit of time on Tara here. It was up to 12.9. It's now down to about 12.4. So maybe the fresher tyres might come into play here. Maybe Tara's going to regret his choice. We'll keep an eye on that, and we'll see how all that pans out.
Interestingly, Lewis Wedding is actually about 5 seconds ahead of Osrob because Wedding hasn't pit yet. So
no, he hasn't.
While this is technically for position, you'll probably see Lewis Wedding get out of the way fairly quickly because he's in a much slower car.
He certainly is, and he's just negotiated the banking coming onto it there. Matt Williams is still on circuit, so too is Jamie Snow. Now, these guys are now negotiating lap 23. I'm still not sure how much fuel saving these guys have done and just how far they can actually go into this race. But they're playing themselves into here. It's looking more and more likely, Bags.
Coming out of the pits. Oh, as Brock Harvey gets so close to the wall at the exit of turn 1, Jaden Draper may have gotten into the back of him a little bit. Might want to have a look at the replay there as they are still side by side.
Well, there they are. Harvey hangs on, and only just. So let's have a look at what happened here. Coming down into turn 1. Draper had a good run. Harvey, and yeah, there was a big wallop. A massive touch. In actual fact, Draper outbraked himself, and it was very, very difficult there. Draper technically should have ceded the position a lot earlier than that. In actual fact, Harvey ran him very, very wide out onto the grass before turn 4, and Draper back underneath. So I think that might be looked at a little bit later because
Draper's laying back through, so I think that'll be left as it is because Draper's
he's now led it back through and given him position here. So
the thing with that though is that it's caused because Brock Harvey and Matt Webb are probably going to get out ahead. Sorry, Brock Harvey and Jane Draper are probably going to get out ahead of Matt Webb because of all the stuffing around they've done, touching each other and getting positions back. They're now 10 seconds. Sorry. No, I've said that incorrectly.
Yep. Matt Webb's had a bit of a moment too. I just caught a bit of smoke.
3 seconds ahead.
I just caught a bit of smoke going into the chicane, and it was Matt Webb. So.
Oh, sorry. Wedding's come into the pits.
And Wedding now in. So Wedding, I think, he's actually exiting the pits, Bagsy. He's been in and he's gone.
And so he's not taken tyres.
So he's only gone for fuel. So another interesting play. Now we've seen Wedding do this before. Namely at Road America in the GT3 a couple of weeks ago, actually about a month ago, where he decided not to take tyres. Is that the right choice? We're getting reports that he's only worn about 40% of the tyre on the one that's been copping the most punishment. So we'll soon find out what happens here. Meanwhile, the LMP2 cars are negotiating the back marks. In actual fact, they caught
GT3 leader.
They caught the GT3 leader in Foley at precisely Snow caught at precisely the wrong moment, and it allowed Matt Williams to close right in. Now, what's going to happen here? Williams is coming in. So Williams is coming in first. So he's been able to get 24 laps out of that car. Slows it down nicely. So Snow going a little bit longer. So that's interesting because they're in exactly the same car. You would have thought they probably would have burnt exactly the same fuel.
Something to note in GT3, the current GT3 leader is PBF Racing's Brenton Foley,
yep.
And the current second place is PBF Racing's
Philip Boak.
So you may recall they were the ones who have pit under every safety car so far, but we've had a long green flag run now, but they have essentially, probably 5 laps worth of fuel extra they can go, maybe more, because they have kept pitting as Cale's got a drive-through penalty for track cuts yet again, I assume.
Yeah, certainly.
Which is unfortunate for him. He's going to have to be very careful for the rest of this race, which is unfortunate because there's an hour and 5 minutes left still.
Yeah, it's actually a car spun to the... There's a car spun to the inside of the track there. I think that might have been Glenn Miles. As it looks like Jamie Snow's possibly going to be coming in this lap. So he's on the banking. So he's been able to go a lap longer than Matt Williams. Williams comes out, retains second place comfortably ahead of Oz Rob, filling in for Johnny Kirkham in that 666 black LMP2 car. So
just had stairs down, staring at the timing screens or the engineering screens that FCR Racing has down there, and he has said that Matt Williams has been using about 0.1 less of a litre a lap, but Jamie Snow did the better job of saving under safety car.
Well,
so
here comes Snow.
Snow's had the extra lap.
He had the extra lap. He's in now. He had a 47-second advantage over Matt Williams, and in he
Who
comes.
Didn't change tyres, remember? So
no, he didn't.
Jamie Snow change tyres? He will not.
Well, let's see what happens with Matt Williams. He's coming down to the chicane now. Fresh and full tank of fuel, and let's see where he comes out. Now, the gap when he came in was only half a second. Is it going to be more? Is it going to be less?
Matt Williams is on the banking of the final corner.
He's on the final rundown now.
Moved away.
Let's see. As he completes lap 25, a local yellow flag somewhere on the circuit. So his outlap was a 2:17. Cayley had another penalty again, so I think he might be just ahead of Matt Williams here. And Snow is actually coming out of the pit lane now, so Snow's gained actually quite substantially. He's actually gained out to about he's gone from half a second in front to 2 seconds in front, so that will not please Matt Williams. And not only that, Snow came out ahead of Cale, and Matt Williams has had to negotiate getting past him, so hasn't done too badly there, Matt Williams, but obviously tyres will be up to temp now. Williams very, very much offline there, so too Cale behind him. So the battle for LMP2 honours is still on. Meanwhile, GT3 leader Brenton Foley in the A class, and second place goes to Boak, and he's a B class runner. So PBF Race Engineering got a good strategy going at the minute. We don't know when they'll have to stop again or how far they can go into this race.
They last stopped on lap 9, and so they've been going for 16 laps now. Brenton Foley's just started his 17th lap, so this will be a good indication of how long those Corvettes can do on their green flag runs.
We'll certainly find out soon. So is the alternate strategy going to pay off? We talked about it earlier, that they've come in, they've taken advantage of the safety car, topped off their tanks, and they're going a bit longer on these stints than everybody else has, so puts them off sequence, gives them some clean air to run in as well, which is good if you just want to run your own race. Some guys prefer to run in the draft, get a little bit more straight line speed, but you've obviously got to then translate those draft running manoeuvres into overtaking manoeuvres. This Corvette very quick in a straight line in any case. Meanwhile, let's have a look back through the field. There's Boak, so he's 5th overall in GT Honours, but he's 1st overall in Pro B at the moment. Matt Schwass missing the bonnet on that M6.
Oh, Wedding's just had a half spin. He's
he's had a half spin out of turn 4, so we just picked up the back end of that. So let's have a look at what he managed to do. Had a little lock up into turn 1. Everything seems relatively normal.
He still has a
on the anchors.
Second,
yeah, he just lost the rear.
13.
Lost the rear
Yeah.
and managed to hang on to it. So he didn't loop it. A
Oh,
penalty
there's
for
a try
Jaden
for
Draper. So what's
Jaden
happened to Draper?
I believe
So
those for track cuts.
yeah, so where's he on the track at the moment? So he's behind Matt Webb. So that's a bit of a disaster for Draper. And Draper's gone deep as well. He's gone deep at turn 6.
Yeah, Matt Webb started slowing down quite early in front of him and pulled out the way, and Draper got a bit blindsided there.
Well, that'll be...
yeah, we did see Jaden Draper talking during the practice session about how he thought the track limits were a bit harsh, let's say, on this track, and clearly he's been having issues with it in practice, and they've continued into the race because he's already got a drive through for track cuts, and from now on, every other track cut you get, or every track cut you get will give you a drive-through penalty. So he's going to have to be very careful through the rest of this race with an hour to go now. We're at the halfway mark.
Yeah, I was going to say the track limits are there, and if you know they're there, why are people continuing to abuse them? It's the obvious track cut spots are the chicane and probably a little bit of the infield section as well if you take a bit too much curb. But to see Ozrob trying to round up these guys on the way. Now Draper elects not to take the penalty this time around. Ozrob having a bit of an issue trying to round up the BMW as well. And look who's taking advantage. It's Matt Webb trying to get in the draft. Oh no! Draper's just given a little bit of a punt there on Ozrob. And now that gives Matt Webb an opportunity. Draper's got two wheels in the grass, and this is not the situation that he wants to be in. He's had a very, very rough couple of corners, and not only that, he's still got his penalty that he has to serve as well.
Just because of some technical issues that we had with the version of the track we're going to use, this is a different version for the track than drivers might have practiced on. So the track limits boundaries, as Brenton Foley, our GT3 leader, has pit, the track boundaries may be a bit different to what the drivers have practiced on. So Jaden Draper might be having issues there as he runs wide again, and Matt Webb is going to have a run on him going through the oval. Yeah,
and to further clarify the version change of the track as well, the deciding factor was safety car as well. So there were some issues with the safety car on the previous version. Not only is this more an aesthetically pleasing version to look at, but it's also fixes the issues with the safety car. As you can see now, back there, Draper still holding off Rob Dunn. He's holding off Matt Webb still at the moment. Now, will Draper serve a penalty? And look who's coming into it. Dunt is closing in on the back of this pair as well now. So Webb hasn't been able to clear.
Are both in the pits line astern. They've Wedding's got past them again, so Wedding retakes the lead of GT3.
Yep.
And Foley had a good 10 seconds.
And Schwass has been given a penalty. So Schwass has been given a penalty. Draper's in to serve his drive-through penalty. Now, where's Schwass on track? So he's actually behind Draper at the moment. So I have a funny feeling that he's some 46 seconds behind. So he's probably copped a penalty for corner cuts as well, as Draper does the pit lane speed limit and gets going again without incident. But
so Boak and Foley have both filled up and put new tyres on. Foley has come out in between Brock Harvey and Matt Webb, so that's a dangerous place to be given how close Matt Webb and Brock Harvey have been fighting. But this is quite good for Brendan Foley if he can make it on one more stop. The others are almost, as Matt Webb has an issue.
Yeah, a little bit
coming out. He's going to get passed by Rob Dunt by the looks of it.
Yeah, Dunt on the inside. Good move for Rob Dunt. And a bit of coming together. And Dunt, it's around. Is he around? Yeah, no, he managed to just get it back on going, but obviously he's not very happy with that either. He thinks that maybe Webb turned down on him a little bit there. And if we go back and have a look at the replay of that, you can see the move was there. He didn't really defend very well, Matt Dunn. I'm not sure, Bagsy. I'm not 100% sure if Dunt's got a right to feel aggrieved there or not, because he was alongside, didn't sort of turn where I would have expected him to normally turn. But nonetheless, he's back out on the circuit, but probably a little bit unhappy. We have now lost Cale, so Cale Parkinson has not finished this race. Probably a few too many track cuts, I would imagine, has been the cause of that. And Draper's DNF'd as well. So Jaden Draper out of 14th has decided, I've had enough, and gone. Now Matt Schwass, we're also hearing his penalty has been rescinded, as his track violation was because he was getting out of the way of the LMP2 leader. So that penalty has been removed. And meanwhile, out in front, look at this. The battle has closed right up between Jamie Snow and Matt Williams. So that gap is now down to less than 0.2 of a second. And it's all because they've been negotiating the GT3 backmarker traffic, as Williams takes a wider line there. Now just ahead on track, they've got the Porsche 991. As Williams closes up again, really heavily under brakes. But doesn't quite get close enough for his liking. So this is Scott Murrell that they're coming up to now in the Porsche. And he gets out of the way and gets out of the way well. Good driving through turn number 6. These two have been going hammer and tongs at it all race long. We've still got 54.5 minutes remaining as Williams tries to take as much speed as he can through turn number 7 and now onto the banking. They're going to get more traffic. They should pass it through now. There they are. So Corvette to the inside of the track, lets them go past. Good driving. So this battle continues to rage on. Through the chicane. And now down to the line in another 20 seconds to complete lap 31. So we've probably got about another 20 or so laps left in this one, Bagsy.
Yes, indeed. Just on Brenton Foley, he's in a pretty good spot at the moment if the race continues as we think, as Tara pits on lap 29. Because of the fact that Wedding is probably, we think, will take 2 more stops to the end, whereas Brenton Foley, we think, may be able to do it in 1. I'm not sure. But if he can, Brenton Foley's in the box seat. Because he is, if I'm just doing some quick maths, 22 is 24 seconds behind Lewis Wedding. And a pit stop's about a minute, I think, if you include the pit lane transit time. So that puts Foley in a pretty good spot if he can do it on one less stop.
Well, certainly does, but it still means that he will have stopped more than 3 times, even though they've been taking advantage under the safety car. It's like it's two green flag stops, but Lewis Wedding didn't take in advantage of any of the green flag of the. Matt Williams has a bit of a moment out of turn 7, but because they've taken advantage under the safety car and Lewis Wedding did not, all of Lewis Wedding's stops are likely to be under green flag, but it will put the alternate strategy into focus in probably about another 15 or 20 minutes time when we see how all this shakes out, as they are rounding up Philip Boak down the back straight, the 2 leaders. Meanwhile,
I don't know if you mentioned it, Jaden Draper's DNF.
Yeah, he has. So we did mention that had occurred, and also Carl Parkinson DNF'd as well. So we've lost 4 during the race and 1 before it started. So we've still got 16 runners. Leader in GT3 Class A is still Lewis Wedding. Still leads Brock Harvey and Brenton Foley at the moment. Your lead B class runner in GT3 is Philip Boak, so he's down in 9th and ahead of Brendan Ross in 10th. He's got a good 10-second advantage on Brendan Ross at the moment.
Rob Dunt is doing, after his issues earlier, is doing well to catch up to where he was. He's coming up to Matt Webb, which was the person he was battling with when he spun. So it's a good recovery so far from Rob Dunt. He's probably wishing he was another 12 seconds down the road, because that would put him ahead of Brock Harvey by several seconds and a bit closer to Lewis Wedding.
Now, Matt Webb is closing in on Brenton Foley as well in the Pro A class. So what Dunt would be hoping for is that Foley can hold him up a little bit and allow him to close back onto the back of that Bentley Continental GT3. But unfortunately for Rob Dunt, Brenton Foley is no slouch in these cars, and he had a very, very good run later on in the GT3 series before that series finished up about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and really showed his prowess in that Ferrari before making the switch to Corvette for this particular endurance series. Dunt comes down now to complete lap 31, so they're about 1 to 2 laps behind the LMP2 runners at the moment, of which we still have all 3 of the LMP2 runners in the field.
Yeah, so we've got Lewis Wedding. He's just gone very wide, getting out the way of Ozrob, who has come through to put a lap on Lewis Wedding. He is now the whole field of LMP2 has lapped the whole field of GT3.
Dunt not really making any impression at the moment on Matt Webb ahead. Matt Webb not really making much of an impression now onto Foley. And Foley some 24, he's 24 seconds, nearly 25 now behind Wedding, and Harvey's only 3 seconds up the road. You can just see the rear wing of Harvey going through front of shot there. Now you can see Harvey a bit further ahead. So Brock Harvey's back to where he started in 5th place. Got a good launch off the line from the rolling start initially. Dropped back as far as 6th in the early running, and now finds himself, after all the first rounds of stops have shaken out, back where he started. So respectable for Brock. He'll be much, much happier with this performance at the way this is going compared to what ultimately could be described as a disaster for him in the final round of the GT3 competition at Laguna Seca a couple of weeks ago, where not only did he find himself lapped by Lewis Wedding in the fight for the championship, but frame rate issues and also issues for the broadcaster ended up meaning that he did a lap time that was 16 odd minutes for his final lap, which is why the 130% final lap rule has come into play for this endurance series.
Yes, it wasn't against the rules. It was, and so therefore it was a good strategy. Some people were calling for his disqualification because it would have been interesting in terms of, I think he would have lost the championship he was battling for, but he wasn't disqualified because he did follow the rules, however technically, and yeah, it was a good call from him to continue on despite the frame issues.
Certainly was. Well, Jamie Snow you saw popped up there on the bottom of the screen there, and did a 36.8 for his flying lap, or his quickest lap of the race, and the race fastest lap in the LMP2 class. And he's stretching his advantage over Matt Williams now out to almost 2 seconds by our timing screens. Reminder that the live timing is broadcast on Live Races, so that's at amsoz.liveraces.com/live. As we look to see when the next round of stops are likely to take place, we just saw the cog flash up for Brock Harvey, but it's immediately taken away, so not this lap for Brock Harvey, but perhaps very, very soon. Just looking through the field to see who has the quickest time in terms of the GT3s at the moment. You can see there Lewis Wedding's got a 44.8. We've also got Brenton Foley with a 44.8. Rob Dunt's done a 44.83, so he's the quickest time that we can see out of all the GT3 runners. That's over the race distance, so 3 guys in the 44.8s and only separated by less than half a tenth in terms of their quickest laps. Harvey continues to go another lap. So now Harvey's gone past Lewis Wedding. Is that Wedding's gone into the pits? So yes, Wedding in the pits. So he's on the move now. So he pits with 47, just under 47 minutes to go. So this will be interesting to see whether or not he can make it from here. It'll be touch and go. If he gets a safety car, he certainly will. But I think if he doesn't get a safety car, he's going to have to stop again.
No, he almost certainly won't make it again. To the end, sorry. Yeah,
so you'll need something to go his way. Meanwhile, Rob Dunt up to turn number 6, and now down to 7. So he's still behind Matt Webb, who is still behind Foley. Looks like Dunt might be coming in this lap as well, as we see Murrell's gone deep, very, very deep there at turn 1, gets himself going again. We just seem to have lost
Wedding stopped early to avoid traffic.
On Glenn Miles going very, very slowly as well, so he's completely shortcutted the chicane and getting going again. So that makes the chicane very, very difficult for people to navigate because all the witches' hats have been taken out. So we'll see what happens there. Meanwhile,
a few of them had already been taken out earlier in the race.
Yeah, there's only one more left standing.
There wasn't. It's a very dangerous place to be a cone, that chicane.
It is. Well, Brock Harvey continues on, not stopping this lap. Here's Foley. We know that he's on an alternate strategy. We'll see what happens.
What we want to focus on is the gap between Lewis Wedding and Brenton Foley, which is currently 23 seconds and dropping.
It is. Well, Rob Dunt is in. We suspected he was coming in, so he's going to have to stop again, more than likely as well, in that Viper. So in for his second stop. Wedding here he is, and the gap to Foley, we said it was 23 seconds, now down to 21 and a half, so Wedding's really pumping it in here. That's a really good outlap too. It's a 52.4.
You're going to see Wedding start closing in because he took new tyres. A lot of people around him probably won't take tyres this stop.
Well, this is the key moment for Lewis Wedding here. If he wants to make strategy work, he's really got to close the gap down because he's going to have to stop again, and it will be a very short stop. So he needs to minimise the gap to Foley, otherwise he runs the risk of not being at the head of the queue when it comes to GT3 Pro A Honours. So at this stage it is advantage this man, Brenton Foley, for PBF Race Engineering and Corvette, with just over 44 minutes to go. When is this man going to stop again? And also, when is his counterpart in the other car, Philip Boak, currently in 8th place and the lead Pro B runner ahead of Brendan Ross, going to stop again as well?
Seeing Wedding is now 20 seconds off of the next person up the road, Matt Webb, and still 23 seconds from Foley. So he was dropping that time a bit, but it seems to have just crept up a little bit. So Foley still putting in some excellent times.
Yeah, Foley's still holding his own as he comes to the line now, driving very consistently. So he'd done a 44.8 that time around. That was his best lap. So he now dips into the 40. He had done a 44.8 a little bit earlier in the piece. So he now does another 44.8. This was a hallmark of his driving toward the end of the GT3 season as well, Foley, when he finally got on top of that Ferrari that he was in, which also carried the Caltex sponsorship that this Corvette's carrying. He really started becoming very, very consistent, very, very smooth, and didn't make the same number of mistakes that he'd made earlier in the season, especially some of the ones that we'd seen back at Suzuka.
Sorry to cut across here, but Wedding has put in his personal best of the race and took 3 seconds out of Brenton Foley in basically half a lap.
So Wedding really on a charge. Those new tyres coming into their own. As we look down the order to see where Lewis Wedding is, here he is, coming down to turn number... What's that one there? Turn number 6. Some of these, turn 1 and turn 6 are a little bit difficult to sort of read when you're looking at it from a different angle. So that's definitely turn 6. But that gap is really coming... Oh, it's still now at 21.5 seconds. So it seems to have stabilised, Bagsy. It wasn't going up at the same... It was coming down quite quickly, but it's not going up and down in leaps and bounds now. So it seems to have settled.
I think part of it is also depends on where on the track they are, because of the fact that the last 2 sectors are basically
Flat
two
out.
long oval sections with one chicane thrown in. So I think that might be part of the reason. But yeah, it's not closing at the speed we thought it would.
No, certainly not. Well, Brock Harvey's in. So Brock Harvey in from 5th place for his next stop with 42 minutes to go. We touch and go to see if he can get home from here, but I suspect he might have to have a splash and dash at the end. Meanwhile, that allows Matt Webb through, still in the pursuit of Brenton Foley. And Wedding now also goes past Brock Harvey while he's in the pits. And this battle ebbing and flowing still, Bagsy, between Foley and Wedding. And Foley really playing himself into contention here. We'd suspect that not only is Wedding going to have to stop again for a splash and dash, Dunt's going to have to stop again for a splash and dash, Harvey again for a splash and dash, and that Foley is really in the catbird seat here.
Yeah, it's almost just based on, I think they're doing, there's a 16 lap stint for Brock Harvey there. He's putting new tyres on, and I'm wondering, 16 laps, another 16 laps from now, they're doing, a minute 40s, mid-minute 40s, so even if they were doing 2-minute laps, that would only get them 32 more minutes, so they definitely need to stop again, but it's so much less, so they should be able to make it a one stop from here. It's going to be difficult. I think Brenton Foley is going to be the one who's closest to being touch and go to get to the end, based on when they last stopped.
Well, if his recent performances are anything to go by, he knows that how to drive the car and how to drive it consistently and smoothly, and when you can do that, you don't burn as much fuel So he might be getting just that little bit here and there as he does a 45.2 that time around. So not that 4/10 off his quickest lap. A couple of small lockups into turn 1, but nothing major. But back out in front, let's have a look, because the gap is still hovering around the 1.5 to 2 second mark between these guys. Snow and Williams, apart from their stops, as Brendan Ross gets a penalty. So Ross was behind Boak and was running second in Pro B GT3 honours as well, so he's going to have to tour the pit lane. But back to Snow and Williams, they've been separated by no more than 2 seconds for most of the race, aside from when they took their stops, and still continue to be separated as Williams takes a little bit longer to round up Rob Dunt's Dodge Viper before the chicane. Ozrob is actually probably very much in danger of being lapped before the end of this race at current pace in the other LMP2 entry. Probably not up to the same sort of speed as what the nominated driver of that car is, but nonetheless,
I believe he stepped
doing
into
all
this
right.
car for the first time in qualifying, so he's doing pretty well considering.
Yeah, he's doing very, very well considering. If you just getting to the flag in its own right will be an achievement if that's the case. As
The gap between Jamie Snow and Matt Williams has not got to 2 seconds since they've pit. That's the only time they've been more than 2 seconds apart from each other.
That's right. The only time that it got more than that, and actually it was a little, it did go up to about 5 seconds when Snow came out of the pits, but then it corrected itself very, very quickly. And Snow got past Harvey at exactly the right moment there too, because now Matt Williams is caught behind Brock Harvey a little bit, and that loses Williams a little bit of time. Harvey will stay wide on the racing line here. Williams will take him on the inside. So Matt Webb in from 5th place. So he'll give 5th up to his teammate Lewis Wedding when Wedding comes through. There we go. The change has just been affected on your leaderboard on the left-hand side. So Foley's still going. Now Foley apparently has got some track warnings up his on his radar as well. So he's probably been taking a little too much curb. I think most of the drivers are falling foul at the chicane and taking a little bit too much curb on the first left-hander. As I said, we did an onboard with Oz Rob a little while ago.
Just crashed into the back of the car that he
wow,
was lapping.
Brenton Foley, what a disaster! And that is in the infield in Glen Miles. So that is coming onto the banking. We've got to take a look at this. So Miles is a lap down. Now Foley was a little... Oh, he was on the racing line. So here he comes, and...
He just wasn't expecting Miles to brake
no,
so early.
and not only that, that's almost game over now for Brenton Foley. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to continue on and
Depends how much
make that
damage
race.
He has. He's still got a 10-second gap to Wedding.
Yeah, but now that he's...
And he does only need one more stop, so it's confirmed he only needs one more stop, but yeah, that big buffer he had has become a lot less, and does he have damage is the big question, because that's going to be what causes what will cause him to lose time. He's got 11.5 seconds on Lewis Wedding now, so that's what we're going to have to look at as the laps go on.
Well, the drama for Foley's now going to be, not only has that lap or the other been a bit of a disaster for him, but he didn't probably communicate, as Brenton Ross gets a drive-through penalty, so Foley's understeered wide there as well at turn 1, so maybe carrying a little bit of damage, but not only has he got to do one more stop, he's got to be very, very careful, because he only has one more one bit of grace up his sleeve when it comes to track limits. If he has another track cut,
Matt Williams
it's going to put him out of it.
And he's now 12 seconds down Jamie Snow, so not even a lap after we said how close they'd been a race, Matt Williams decides to take it upon himself to spin around and lose that gap.
Yeah, well, they're both going to have to stop again, but Snow has really got plenty of time. Actually, Snow's in the pits, because the gap has really... is he in the pits? No, the gap's come down quite significantly. So I thought he was in the pits there for a minute, because it went down by by a huge chunk. So I've eaten my words. And actually, there he is, just on the back of shot. So he has gone through. Jeez, I thought that they were coming in for a minute there. They still continue to go on, but Williams will be kicking himself now, because he was right there, and probably pushed just a little bit too hard. Now got traffic to negotiate. This will compound matters for Williams. He's coming
Wedding is going to be licking his lips at the moment, because now as he comes into the chicane, he can see Foley ahead on the other side of the chicane. So he's got that carrot that's dangling there now, and he's taken about a second out of him in the last lap. So
yep, Brennan Ross in the
there's
pits.
going to be more than 11 laps left in this race. So you think that Wedding's going to catch Foley by the end, and potentially will even catch him and pass him in the pit stops, because Foley may have damage that needs to be repaired in the pit stop, and that will keep him stationary longer.
It will depend on how much damage there is and if Foley can continue, or if he can't continue without repairing the damage. But we've got 34 minutes to go, plus there will be one lap after the time expires.
It's a shame for Foley, because as we were saying earlier, he was in the catbird seat, and he's just gone and he's thrown it away, basically, because you've got to be careful when coming up to lapped cars. There's often a reason they're lapped cars, and that's because they're slower than you and they're going to be braking earlier and things like that. So just a bit of a rookie error there for him.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of still a learning curve for him, but communication is key. These guys have got headlights, so they can make it very, very clear to them that they want to overtake. I don't actually know what Foley was doing behind Miles. It wasn't for position, so
he was lapping him.
Yeah, he was behind him. But it wasn't for position. But why was he in his wheel tracks? What benefit was there to be gained by being in his wheel tracks? He was clearly the faster car and could have easily rounded him up. I didn't know whether he was going to settle for him and try go over the banking, but the opportunity was there, and he should have taken it on the inside. I don't understand why he was there.
I think he just wasn't expecting him to brake so much earlier than he was, because obviously it's one of those things that can happen when you're one of the faster drivers. You expect everyone else to be braking where you are, and then you're surprised that they aren't able to brake so early.
Well, nonetheless, he's still in 4th place, and it's first overall in GT3A, but Wedding is still pegging the gap. It's now down to under 10 seconds. So maybe the damage that Foley is carrying is hampering his pace a little bit. The question is, can he get to the end without having to repair the damage, or is the damage that significant that he's not going to be able to make it? Well, meanwhile, there's not too many battles going on up and down the field at the minute. It all seems to have settled down. The only gaps that we're keeping an eye on is Foley to Wedding. As we cycle through the field, let's have a look at what's been going on. We're approaching half an hour to go, and it's currently Jamie Snowballs, as they call him, and as you can see on the old barge board sort of wing between the cockpit and the rear wing. But number 44 is currently, was it 14 or 44? Sorry, to me it looks like 44, but I think it might actually be 14. Currently flying out in front, got a nice little 15-second cushion at the moment.
He has actually increased the lead since
14.
Matt Williams spun, so Matt Williams must have decided to ease off a bit. He must have thought he was pushing too hard, because he's definitely eased off there.
Well, nonetheless,
James Snow's taking time out of him.
It is car 14 nonetheless. He's out in front by 15. Here's Matt Williams now. Williams potentially looking at a stop this lap by judging by the cog on the left-hand side there. So this could be the last stop for Matt Williams.
The gap for Foley's stabilised slightly, as it's 10 seconds out. Isn't coming down as fast, so maybe there's a little bit of life in it left for Foley. This strategy that PBF Race Engineering have gone for, though, is going to work out quite well for them, because Philip Oak has a 20-second advantage over Greg Tara, and it's looking like, barring mistakes, it will be a double podium in GT3 class.
That's in overall. That's in overall. I mean, even you look at Boak being a Pro B runner, he's miles ahead of David Keane as well in the Pro B Honours, as Matt Williams coming into the pits for the last time. So through the order, Jamie Snow, Matt Williams, Oz Rob is third, and that's overall as well as in class for LMP2. Brenton Foley still leads GT3 overall and in Pro A as he negotiates joiner, and coming in this lap, so he can get home from here. So Now Wedding's got to put the hammer down. Speaking of Lewis Wedding, he's also coming onto the banking. He's currently fifth.
Rob Dunt has retired.
Yeah, we didn't see that. So Dunt was looking quite good. So he's dropping down the field and has retired. Boak coming in this lap as well in the GT3 class in Pro B. So he'll get home from here as well. Tara's currently 7th overall, followed by Matt Webb, the other of the loose Webb motorsport cars in Bentley Continental. Brock Harvey still going in that little Lotus Exige Sport. Currently down in 9th, but waiting for the pit stops to shake out to see where he comes in at. And running at top 10, doing a good job, Scott Murrell in the Porsche 991.
Matt Schwass has had an issue coming into turn 6 and he's lost his rear wing.
So it's the second time that Matt Schwass has had no rear wing, and he gets a drive-through penalty for good measure. Well, this is where it's at. Foley's in. Wedding's gone through. Gone very wide at turn 1, Lewis Wedding. He's miles offline. Over the white lines, actually. And Foley in. Here comes Boak. So the PBF teammates stay on the same strategy of pitting on the same lap as each other. I suspect Foley's taking on tyres here as well as fuel. Not sure if they're repairing any damage. We'll soon find out. Teammate pulls in behind. Up it goes on the jacks. Tara coming in as well, so he can get home from here as well. So mirroring what the PBF cars are doing. Foley's still in the pits. Waiting to see what... And now he's away. Snow in the pits as well, so he's in. Let's see if Matt Williams is able to close the gap down at all, because Williams out on fresh rubber, trying to recover after that spin before his stop. And the gap coming down. Snow...
Jamie Snow may have used that stop for a comfort break as well, so I'm wondering if that's cost him any extra time, because Matt Williams is now...
Well, he's going to round him up.
He's passing him.
He's going to round him up by the look of things. They're going to come out side by side. What on earth has Jamie Snow done? Because this is what they're talking about, the rejoin the pit exit. Snow's behind Williams. That is a bit of a shock. We didn't expect that. But a comfort break might be...
I feel the need to repeat the words of our pit lane reporter, Stairs, who has said that Snow has lost time with that slash and dash. So
well, and Matt Williams has gone wide through turn 6. That allows Snow to get on the outside. What's Williams going to do? He defends and goes understeers a little bit wide. That allows Snow to get back underneath. Oh, here we go. Snow's got underneath. Tara gets a penalty for drive-through. Snow's now underneath Matt Williams, and Snow's going to have the high ground here, and he does. He'll pull out ahead, but now needs to move himself. Now needs to move himself over for this chicane, and
Matt Williams has got a bit more speed here, though.
Oh, be careful.
Matt Williams.
Normally you don't go side by side through that chicane. Matt took a bit of curb there and quite a fair bit of the grass as well.
Being very good, giving us a very good battle and doing quite well to battle carefully.
Well, we're going to stay with these guys because with 26.5 minutes to go, this is game on.
Well, they're coming up to
traffic. They're coming to Miles. Now
Miles.
Yep. Now Miles stays high this time. Good driving, Glenn Miles. Got out of the way nice and early. Saw him coming. Williams is going to have to defend for his life for the next 26 minutes. Plus one lap.
We saw Jamie Snow had the pace on him after Matt Williams had his issues. So they've got the feeling that this is Jamie Snow's race, really, and that this is just going to be a minor impediment for him. But, you know, Matt Williams, he can race and he can defend. He's going to make the back of that car as wide as he possibly can.
Oh, yeah, he certainly is. Putting it in all the right places at the moment is Matt Williams in that Lola LMP2 car, chased by the HDP car or the HPD car behind the open cockpit. Williams takes a little bit more of a wider line through turn 7, tries to carry a bit more speed out onto the banking, going ahead of Snow, and they're just holding station. Snow just tucked into the draft here as well at the moment, but not gaining too much as they come to the chicane.
They're
That's
coming
better.
up on some lapped traffic too in Luke Joyner.
So they're coming up to Joyner. He's had a couple of tours of the pit lane as well. We're looking down the field to see who else is having a good old battle there. Lewis Wedding still out on track, so it's at the moment it's Loose Web Motorsport 1 and 2 in GT3 Pro A, but Brock Harvey's also found himself up into 3rd place overall. Brenton Foley 4th, with Philip Boak in 5th, but those top couple of guys in GT3A are going to have to stop again.
We're starting to see a lot more drive-through penalties here, which is for track cuts. A lot more track cuts. People are running out of their
Oh, what Scruff's gone deep. Matt Williams has gone way, way, way deep and into the barriers. My goodness gracious me. Just went a little bit too hot into turn 4, Matt, and Jamie Snow's little comfort break doesn't look so bad now. He's actually got a 6-second advantage. Matt Williams, I don't think, is going to have much to fight with here. Hopefully he hasn't done any rear damage to that LMP2 car, but he's thrown it all away. Well,
sorry, you have to forgive me for a second. I'm having some technical issues, so I'll be back momentarily.
Roger that. Well, Matt Williams, I think, will have to settle for it here in LMP2. Meanwhile, if we have a look at things, Lewis Wedding is in. So here's the critical moment for Lewis Wedding. Matt Webb in 5th place will pass Lewis Wedding on the track, but the question is how far back is Foley? Now we know Foley can go to the flag.
There was a minute between them when Wedding came into the pits, so it's going to be very close on exit, but Wedding doesn't have to stop for as long, so I think this may be Wedding's.
Well, Harvey goes through as well. Wedding's on the move. Here comes Foley. So Foley coming up to the line and crosses it now. Where's Wedding? Wedding is at the pit exit. Foley's going to round him up just before they go through turn 1. So there's Foley. There's Wedding. So now Wedding's got to put the hammer down. Wedding's actually getting blue flags now because of the race leader coming through. So he'll have to stay wide here. And he does. And that will lose him a bit of time to Foley, and probably just at the wrong time for Lewis Wedding. There's Foley. There's Wedding. So the gap is only 2.5 seconds. So that little moment for Brenton Foley, where he lost 10 seconds to Wedding, has cost him dearly in terms of track position and how far ahead of the Bentley Continental that he actually should be. Now it's Foley's race to lose. We've got a yellow flag on track that's been very, very quickly mopped up. Local yellow. But can Wedding close the gap down? We've seen him eat into the advantage and eat into it rather quickly. The question is, how long will it take him to do so? Here's Brock Harvey. He's about to be rounded up by the race leader in Jamie Snow. And at a convenient part of the track, as Harvey stays low, Snow goes high. Harvey tries to tuck in the draft, but that LMP2 car is so quick.
So yeah, just imagine that Brenton Foley is another 10 seconds down the road here. That puts him going into turn 1 at this point and gives him what we'd describe as a very comfortable lead coming into the final stage of this race, where we have about 21 minutes left.
Yeah, we could pace himself.
He could afford half a second a lap and still be ahead at the end, but that's not the case now. He has a very, very small gap. He now only has less than a second now.
Certainly does. So Matt Webb yet to pit. He leads GT3A at the moment, currently coming up to some backmarker traffic. Brock Harvey being rounded up by the LMP2 cars. Oz Rob on the inside here. Harvey gives him some space and now lets him go by on the outside. Brenton Foley, he's only got less than a second over Wedding, so Wedding is really applying the blowtorch. And they're coming up to lap traffic as well in David Keane. So Keane stays high, Wedding and Foley go low, so Foley's learned his lesson that time around, overtaking at that corner. But this is
gonna
really
be
on.
the drive of Foley's life if he can manage to hold on to this.
Well, he's got 20 minutes to do it plus 1 lap, so Wedding's not going to give up that easily. But as you said, Bagsy, the 10 seconds that cost Foley in the previous stint, where he had his little moment and needed to recover the car, have unfortunately hurt him, and hurt him rather badly. Wedding getting closer and closer and closer. It's now down to a half second, and look at the amount of time it's gaining. He's gaining. I've got a funny feeling that there might be some damage on that Corvette that is hampering Brenton Foley. He's going to have to defend. He defends to the inside as they come in through the tri-oval and now throw into turn number 1. Wedding just bides his time. Little puff of smoke from the Corvette ahead under brakes. This is Wedding's next opportunity if he fancies a lunge. He's a bit too far back. He thinks better of it. He knows he's got time. Well, Foley's gone deep anyway, and Wedding is underneath quite comfortably.
Although he's got the outside for the next corner. I think Matt Williams might have had another spin ahead of him.
Yeah, he has. Well, Foley actually manages to hold position there. I think Wedding probably backed out of it as well. So Wedding's just going to bide his time here.
Wedding knows he's got better tyres, he's got the confidence, and he knows he has the pace on Brenton Foley. So he's got, he doesn't have all the time in the world. He has about 20 minutes left. But, he knows that this is going to be a lot of pressure on Foley as well. Although this isn't the first time that Wedding has been monstering Foley, it happened several times in the GT3 season. So, Foley's experienced this a little bit. He knows that Wedding's faster, but he's got a good head on his shoulders, and he's driving quite well at the moment.
He's trying to keep his defensive line as he can without compromising himself. There's a bit of puff of smoke through the chicane here.
Gone off.
Yes, Matt Williams is having all sorts of dramas. And
chicane there.
That was at the chicane. That was the puff of smoke that we saw. So Matt Williams not having a good final stint of this race. Yeah, he's actually dropped behind these two.
Webb's in.
And Webb is currently in for his final stop. Harvey goes past.
Tara has retired.
And Greg Tara retires. Drive-through penalty for Glenn Miles. So Tara wasn't doing too badly. I'm wondering if some of the old frame rate issues are starting to creep in again. We've had some reports that a few people in the commentary team have been having frame rate dilemmas. We hope not.
Yeah, see, it's for us it's a simple fix if we can leave the game and come back, but you can't do that when you're driving these cars. You'll be retired from the race. So,
certainly right.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't hit. It's the problem. It can be a problem with non-standard tracks in Automobilista.
Yep.
As Wedding is right up the back of Foley now. He's closed that gap in a lot, but they've also got Matt Williams coming up behind them yet again.
That's right. So
we'll see what happens here.
They're both getting blue flags. Miles gets another penalty. That'll be for speeding in the pit lane for serving his corner cutting penalty.
Actually, I think that was for another corner cut because he's not in the pits at the moment.
Well, there we go. So this will where be Matt Williams rounds them up. So
he'll be easily around the outside here. So there's no advantage to either of these guys.
Nope. He's round the outside of Wedding.
Wedding's going to try to get a bit of a toe here from Matt Williams.
Yeah,
a bit cheeky from Wedding.
Being very, very smart, actually, Lewis Wedding. Now, Foley's the smart one. He'll tuck in behind here, and he does. Oh, puff of smoke. He's got a bit deep, but he manages to... How on earth did he manage to get that stop? But this allows Wedding to buy into it. Foley has to go really, really, really defensive here, and he's got to hold the bottom all the way around. But Wedding has got the drive and around the high side. But it's a shorter line around the bottom, but not by very much. Wedding's got more pace, but Foley's got the inside line.
Extra pace coming off the top, though.
He does.
That's going to put him directly alongside as they come into the tri-oval.
Side by side.
Who's the bravest breaker coming into the first corner.
Foley's backed out of it.
Foley has
Foley backed out of it. Game, set and match. I've got a funny feeling without any mistakes from Lewis Wedding, Foley's still going to try and hone in and get that position back, but the minute he went too deep at the chicane, I think that's pretty much going to be game, set and match to Lewis Wedding. So the alternate strategy was looking really, really good for Foley, but just one little mistake cost him 10 seconds and ultimately cost him top honours in GT3 Pro A if it stays the way that it is.
That being said, the strategy's working out excellently for Philip Boak, who is currently third in the GT3 class. He's not too far ahead of Matt Webb, though. Matt Webb is only 2 seconds back on him, so that's going to be hotting up. Although it's and that is for Pro B honours.
No, in terms of class honours, Boak is the lead Pro B runner, and Brendan Ross is the next one in queue. Matt Webb is still a Pro A runner. So
sorry, I saw a green light on Matt Webb's car.
Yeah, so according to the live timing, Matt Webb is in Pro A, and he was also in the intro video as a Pro A driver as well. But Foley's doing his best to hang on to the back of Wedding here, trying to apply a bit of pressure if he can.
It might be that Foley wanted that carrot out in front of him, and that will help improve his lap time. You can see where Wedding's braking and follow his lines and stuff, and maybe apply a little bit of pressure to the back of Wedding and make Wedding just a little bit nervous. But Wedding is a very cool customer, and I don't think it'll faze him having Foley right behind him.
As Miles comes into the pits, gets out of the way of these two guys. Foley just turned to 45.0, so he's not slow. The damage he's doing is not hampering his pace. He goes a bit deep there at turn 1, gathers it up okay, but he's still hanging on to the back of Wedding here. Now, Brock Harvey, if we look a bit further forward, he's flashing the headlights furiously at one of the Corvettes just ahead of him. Wants him to get out of the way.
Praying for a safety car.
Oh, Brock is praying for a safety car, and on top of that, he's got Lewis Wedding. He's got Matt Williams behind him as well. Has to let him through, but you're right. He's praying for a safety car here because he currently holds top honours in GT3A. If a safety car comes out, then he goes into fuel conservation mode and can very, very possibly get home.
He needs to pit in 7 laps, and it's minute 45 per lap. So, a safety car would chew up 3 laps most likely, depending on how long it went for, and it would probably give him enough to get to the end because those 3 laps would be much slower.
Oh, he's missed the chicane. He's missed the chicane completely there. Outbraked himself. So
he probably should have slowed down a bit more than he did, to be honest.
Well, he'd already let Matt Williams past him, so he's actually lost a bit more time to Matt Williams anyway. I think he was trying to get
drive-through.
Well, that just compounds matter.
His track cuts.
Well, that just compounds Brenton Foley's night or day even further. Out of track cuts, now has to serve the drive-through. And that is going to, it may even drop him behind his teammate, depending on how things go. Because
no, he's got 38 seconds on his teammate.
Yep.
So
well, Harvey's gone way deep at turn 1, but also I think that's Matt Schwass going way deep as well.
Schwass.
So Harvey manages to get through, but it looks like he might be coming in this lap, Brock Harvey, at this rate. Meanwhile, Wedding going about his business quite nicely, looking good to go into the top step of GT3 Pro A as Foley tours the pit lane and exits, so he comes out comfortably ahead of Boak. No further penalties.
He's got to be careful because he can't afford to do that again. If he does it again, he'll be behind his teammate. And Boak has obviously been doing a bit better than Foley in terms of respecting the track limits. And Foley, he can afford to be careful now. He's not going for Wedding. He's not got pressure from behind, so he just needs to keep his nose down, not be too aggressive, and he'll be fine, and he'll have second place sewn up.
Well, we've got 11.5 minutes to go in what's been a good opening race, I should say. Not a great opening race, but a good opening race. We could have done with a few more drivers from the LMP2 side coming in and giving us a good spectacle out in front, but hopefully next time in a couple of weeks when we go off for the 90 minutes of Sebring at the Sebring International Raceway, just up the road, ironically, from the Daytona International Speedway. Daytona Beach in Florida to Sebring in Florida.
Yeah, it's for a World Endurance Championship. We're not seeing too much of the world in the first 2 rounds, but we're definitely going to be going further afield after Sebring.
Yeah, no, I can probably shed a little bit of light on that as Lewis Wedding laps David Keane. The World Endurance...
Brock Harvey's pit.
Yeah, the Endurance Championship has been split up into 3 distinct legs. It's been split up into a North American leg, a European leg, and an Asia-Pacific leg. So, if you look at how the calendar is actually structured, we've got 2 races in the United States. So we've got Daytona and Sebring back-to-back. I've just lost Lewis Wedding. So that's a bit.
Yeah.
That's concerning. So that's really concerning.
I can't see Wedding either.
I'm not sure if this is a dropout or if this is a frame rate issue again, but Wedding
He's
has...
vanished entirely from the track.
He's
and
missing entirely.
Foley is about to pass where Wedding is meant to be.
So that gets him
or
back.
Where Wedding was.
So I don't know. And Wedding's DNF'd, so Wedding
Oh,
gone.
mate, that's
Heartbreak.
an hour and 50 minutes into a 2-hour race, and a technical issue, a car failure essentially, has caused Wedding to drop out of the race, and this puts Foley back into the lead. So Foley's Christmases have all come
As Miles is on
the same time.
Miles is off the track as well. Glenn Miles is sitting off to the left of the circuit as Foley goes past. So
Brock Harvey's strategy has worked out well for him as well. He's actually not too far behind Brenton Foley. He's only 6 seconds behind, and he didn't pit for fresh tyres though, so he's on more worn tyres than Foley. But yeah, look for Brock Harvey to come in and maybe try and steal Brenton Foley's thunder here.
Brenton Foley
As
thinks
we're hearing Foley may be needing to fuel save, so this is certainly making the end of this race interesting. And we know Foley has to be careful too.
That's right.
There's no track cuts.
So Stairs will be furiously down there trying to work out what on earth has happened to Lewis Wedding, who's tumbling down the order at the moment in the GT3 category. So puts Brenton Foley back up. I'll just finish what I was about to say with regards to the calendar. So we've got the North American leg where we're doing Daytona and Sebring in back-to-back. Then we've got our European leg, which we have Silverstone, we have Monza, and we have Spa, 3 of the iconic tracks of the Formula One world, 2 of which host World Endurance Championship races in their own right. And then we go over to the Asia Pacific leg, which we end up with Shanghai being a 2-hour race, so that should be a good circuit. Again, Shanghai hosting a World Endurance Championship race in real life. And then we have 2 other circuits where we have the final in Melbourne and 1 more in the Asia Pacific leg as well.
We're hearing Wedding had the same frame rate issues that myself and Stairs were suffering from as well, so that's very unfortunate for Wedding.
Very, very unfortunate. So the frame rate issues that have struck us in the past have occurred again. And some people falling victim of it, and some people not. As we all head down to 7.5 minutes remaining in
Oz
this
Roberts
race.
has pit, so I'm guessing he was a bit lean on fuel as well. Brenton Foley, we reckon, was going to be half a lap short, so I think he is fuel saving a bit. As Brock Harvey is, I mean, he's keeping the gap to Brock Harvey though, so he's doing pretty well. He is fuel saving.
Yeah, Harvey is close down to 7 seconds now. In actual fact, I'm looking down to see Webb and Boak. So Webb and Boak are really, really close here. So this is for podium position. Not only that, Matt Webb in Pro A, Boak is Pro B, and a Corvette giving the Continental a run for its money. And looking to the high side, can't get through, and thinks better of it, backs out of it, goes a
Matt
little
Webb
bit
just
too
giving
wide.
a bit of a jink to the right there to just make sure that Boak didn't try to go around the outside. We're hearing that our race leader Jamie Snow is having some his frame's hanging a bit. So is Jamie Snow about to have the same issue Wedding did? With only 5 laps left in this race.
Well, we certainly hope not. We've seen this before, where the frame issues become to such a point. He's only got to hang on for another 6 minutes, plus 1 lap. There he is in the background. And Matt Webb hanging on for dear life ahead of Philip Boak. Foley still heads Brock Harvey by 6 seconds now. That's still getting down. to the
Brendan
nitty-gritty
Ross
end.
coming into the pits from 8th place, so he obviously wasn't going to make it. He's having a quick splash and dash.
And we've lost half the field here as well. Almost half the field gone, which is a bit of a shame. We lost a few well and truly before the 90 minutes had expired, and then after the 90 minutes we've only lost 1 or 2 with the dreaded issues in the frame rate, but still plenty of cars still circulating as David Keane gets a drive-through penalty. It'll be a track limit violation there. And having a look here, you can see that Matt Webb's just pulled out a bit more of an advantage over Boak now. Oh, he has a horrible lock-up there into turn number 1. But he's still got plenty of...
Coming up on Scott Murrell and Brendan Ross, who just did his last pit stop.
Yep.
And they're both a lap down on those two, but they're still fighting for 8th and 9th place.
Yep. We've still got 12 runners overall out of the 21 that took the start, 20 that actually saw the green flag. So we've got to about half, just over half the field remaining. With 4 minutes to go. Your race leader, Jamie Snow, he's got quite a margin now over Matt Williams. Look at this, he's got 44, nearly odd seconds. And he's in cruise control at the moment. So he'll come down to the line and he'll set a lap time probably in about a minute and a half. Which means
he's closing in on Brenton Foley now.
He is. So we expect that we'll get probably 2 more laps plus 1 from Jamie Snow at this pace. He's about to put Matt Schwass another lap down. Through he goes. Last lap time around for Snow was a 37.9, so despite some of the frame drops, he's still putting in some respectable times all the way to the flag. Matt Williams, in contrast with Jamie Snow down at turn 4, Matt Williams has just exited the chicane, so compounding Matt Williams' night, he was right under Snow's rear wing for the majority of the race, and then the final stint after the pit stops, it all came undone for the Far Canal racing driver of the number 37. First of all, spinning off the track, putting it into the rear, into the wall, and then a couple of other spins along the way have seen his deficit as he's still pushing the envelope too much. He's got some aero damage as well, from what we hear. You can see that he's lost so much time just by pushing too hard in this final stint that it's ultimately cost him a shot of victory.
Well, Brendan Ross and Scott Murrell going at it, coming out of turn 6, the Porsche and the Corvette.
Well, both the Far Canal cars have actually lapped the entire field at least once. They've actually lapped the other LMP2 entry of Oz Rob, as Matt Schwass gets a penalty there. Speak of Oz Rob, respectable to step into that car at very short notice.
Matt Webb has crashed and let Philip Boak back through. He's hit the wall somewhere.
Yeah, so he has. So
that front of that Bentley is quite caved in.
Well, here he is, and he's about to get rounded up by Matt Williams too. Yeah, that Bentley, understeered almost horribly into the wall there too. Yeah, you can see that there's a bit of damage on the front there, right around the grille area. So Boker's through, so that's a double podium for PBF at the moment as it stands, with at least one more lap plus 1 to go. Now Harvey still continuing to go.
2 seconds of Brenton Foley now too.
Yeah, he's honing in on the back of him really quickly, isn't he? The little Lotus just keeps going and going and going like a little Energizer bunny. It just continues
Just looking
to
at
run.
where Jamie Snow is, I think we'll get 2 laps after this one.
So let's go and have a look at where Snow is on the
It's gonna be
track.
touch and go, 'cause I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's on the
exact time.
he's on the banking. He's about to finish lap 62, so he's on his way down to the chicane, and unless he really slows up, he's at the chicane with 40 seconds left on the clock. So he's going to cross the line at this pace, have to do 2 more laps, so he'll get the white flag not that long after or the time will the time will expire not that long after, and he's actually realised, I think, Snow, because he's backed right out of it. Have a look at this.
Yeah, he's only doing 200 k's an hour now.
Yeah, he's playing it smart here. He's got such an advantage to Matt Williams. He doesn't want to have to do any more than one more lap than what he should. So he's really just crawling it along. 10 seconds to go. He's going to have to slow down a bit more than that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So the time has expired. Snow has got 1 lap to go. He's in cruise control. So play that rather smartly to do 64 laps. Now, our prediction was that without the safety cars, we were going to get somewhere around the 70 mark for the LMP2. So we went too wrong.
We're hearing he might not have been doing it because of his frame issues, but so Foley can make it on fuel. So bit of camaraderie there, as Brent and Foley, it means we'll only have to defend from Brock Harvey for 1 lap and won't have to fuel save as
well. What an interesting bit of information that is. As Foley goes a bit wide, Harvey is still honing in on the back of this car. And this will be interesting to see, because these guys will have to take another lap as well.
We're hearing that Foley didn't get the white flag, so maybe...
No, they haven't crossed the line for the white flag, because Snow crossed it, has received the white flag. All these cars have to get around and take the white flag and then do 1 more lap. So Foley's can't rest on his laurels here. He's got to get going and make lap time while saving fuel, as they call it, and he's probably not going to be very happy about having to do that. But in the meantime, Jamie Snow has exited the chicane, coming round to the flag. The double checkers are out. Well, he had a good run in the GT3 early on, and then disappeared off the radar, and then came back and didn't do too badly, but he now takes a much-deserved victory, Jamie Snow. Job well done for LMP, Far Canal Racing, and HPD. It'll be Matt Williams, 2nd overall in class in LMP2, coming to the line now. Complete 64 of 64.
Brent Foley has made it to the end.
And Foley has made it ahead of Brock Harvey. And Matt Webb. Webb's gotten back past ahead of Philip Boak, but Boak's got him over. Has Matt Webb run out of fuel? I'm not sure. He might have just run out of fuel, but he finishes 7th, and a pass by Philip Boak in the last couple of 100 metres of the racetrack. As Jamie Snow celebrates with the customary burnouts.
Although I believe that's not for position, because they're in different classes.
No, in terms of the overall, well, in terms of where the point scoring sort of situation, it'll be Boak getting maximum points. Matt Webb will see how all that works out when...
Ozrob is the last one to cross the line.
And Ozrob is the last one to cross the line.
For LMP2. So
yep.
Ozrob coming in to pad out the numbers a bit, and he's done quite well. He's managed to finish the race, which is pretty good considering he didn't have any experience in this car as far as I know. And so quite well done for him. I'm not sure if those points are going to go to Johnny or not because it's his car. I somehow doubt it, though.
We'll soon find out. But your race winner, Jamie Snow, job well done, sir. And that is the end of our first our first World Endurance Championship race. Now we're just waiting to see if we can get a couple of the drivers into the booth here for a little interview. Just waiting to see how we go. We actually have our race winner in here in LMP2, and we have our overall, we have our defending GT3 champion in Lewis Wedding in here as well. So we'll get to Lewis in a minute, but if Jamie's there, I want to grab a word with him just to see how he did. So, Jamie, you pretty much had from the drop of the green flag, you had control of the race. You didn't make any mistakes, but your frame rate issues, from what we hear, started to rear their head toward the end. But you controlled it beautifully, and you've had your first win since Imola. Well done, mate.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, I did start to get a few just little frame drops and stuff like that. I was starting to have flashbacks to Laguna Seca, but thankfully it all held together for me, and for what turned out to be a fairly easy win. I just had to keep it clean. Scruff and I were kind of planning to just basically run laps, and then the last stint we were going to kind of go at it a little bit and see who was the better man. But unfortunately, the rear end just got out from underneath him under brakes, and he couldn't keep it on the black stuff. So easy win from there.
Certainly sounds like you had it all your own way for pretty much the whole entire race. I want to turn my attention now to Lewis Wedding. So Lewis, as we said before, the defending GT3 champ, unfortunately looks like you've become another victim of the old frame rate drops, Lewis. True? Oop.
Hello?
Yep, you're here. As I said, you look like you look like you've become another victim of the old frame rate issue again.
Nah, that wasn't frame rate. That was once again the internet has struck.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, not too happy with Optus right now. I don't think. Obviously, that was after all the safety car dramas at the start finally got going, and yeah, obviously realised that the two PBF cars only needed to pit one less time than us, so they decided to push and, obviously short field, and strategy worked out well from there and got myself back in the lead, and then looked like it was going to be an easy sort of drive to the end after Foley got his drive through, and then everybody, I had a lap car in front of me and a lap car behind me, and they just disappeared, and spoke to Matt on TeamSpeak because I was on TeamSpeak with him, and he said, you're dropping down the timing. So that was frustrating. Obviously, I've had a win taken away and a comfortable second taken away in the last 4 days, so a bit frustrating. But it was, I guess, pleasing that obviously the two Bentleys were pretty quick around here. It's just a shame that on the last lap, Matt didn't get the white flag, so he slowed down because if there was another lap, he would have run out of fuel. And because he didn't see the white flag, he slowed down at the end to try and save fuel, and then lost position at the end. So we've lost a couple of good results because of obviously a couple of issues out of our control, which is quite frustrating.
Yeah, certainly. Well, nonetheless, Brenton Foley, if he wants to have a chat with us, he's taken overall honours in GT3 Pro A. So you had an alternate strategy there, Brenton, and it looked like it was going to pay off for a little while. Then you had your little spin moment, and then obviously your drive-through penalty compounded matters, but then with Lewis's failure to finish, you found yourself to the top step of the podium for GT3 Pro A.
Yeah, it was quite eventful. I think I pitted every safety car lap at the start of the race. I think I pitted about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, you certainly did.
So I had about 6 laps on everyone, and kind of just kept to myself for most of the race. Then that spin, I actually connected with a lapped car, and then got another curb strike and got the drive through. So I was a bit angry. I just had to calm down. But Brock was catching me for the whole last stint while I was just trying to save fuel. Across the line with just less than a litre.
Well, you certainly just made it, and your teammate over in the GT3 Pro B side in Phil Boak, he's had quite a good run as well, so obviously leads the Pro B standings there, but you basically had the same strategy and mirrored each other all race long, and it paid off. So job well done to you guys. You've certainly shown that you're not going to be knockabouts in this particular series. You're certainly going to be right up there, and we wish you guys very, very well for the remainder of the series. Speaking of series and upcoming events, have a look here, because your touring car championship round number 5 from Salvador, that's Lewis Wedding's the master of that one, looking after that, so that's coming up tomorrow, and Loose 89 on Twitch is where you need to tune into if you want to have a look at that. The new Super Series gets underway on Thursday, August the 2nd. Stairs heads up that commentary, supported by myself. We're at Sandown, in the old Sandown, home of horsepower, as they like to call it, but being toured by Lancers. So looking forward to that. And then next Sunday, alternating with the World Endurance Championship, it is the Formula One series, which also stares broadcast. I'll be racing in that, and it's the Australian Grand Prix from Albert Park, Sunday 5th of August, so be sure to tune in for that. This has been another presentation brought to you by the ARW commentary team on behalf of Short Shift Podcast, the 2 hours of Daytona. We will see you again soon. So until then, as always, please everyone, continue to drive safe. See you next time.